Introduction by Robert H. Davis. Cooking is a gift, not an art. Eating is an art, not a gift. In combination, a grace is developed. No great culinary triumph was ever perfected by accident. Charles Lamb's essay on roast pig was responsible for a tidal wave of burnt pork that swept over England in the 19th century. Mr. Lamb led a hungry empire to the belief that only through an act of incendiarism could a suckling porker be converted into a delicacy. Whereas, as a matter of fact, the perfection of roast pork, golden brown and unseared by fire, were possible only in the oven. Lucullus, the good Roman gourmet, had his meals cooked in a mint. He required that his masterpieces be served on gold and silver and crystal and spread on a table of lapis lazuli. The sauces compiled for him were worth more than the food upon which they were poured. He was the high priest of extravagance and luxury. A single meal stood him a fortune. He had more regard for the cost than for the cooking. It is said that his death was hastened by dyspepsia. In the early 70s, a French nobleman, living in the neighborhood of Barbizon, was found seated at the table with his face in a plate of soup. Because of the fact that a butcher knife had been inserted via the back between his fourth and fifth rib on the left side, he was quite dead. Clues led nowhere. It became one of the mysteries. Long afterward, an old man tottered into the office of the prefect and announced that he wished to make a confession. "Proceed," said the official. "'Twas I," responded the ancient, "who delivered the death stroke to the Duc de La 35 years ago." "What inspired you to make this confession?" "Pride." "I do not comprehend. The details, if you please." "By profession I was a chef," said the self-accused. "The Duke, at a fabulous price, enticed me into his service. His first request was that I make for him a perfect consomme. Voila! For 3 days I prepared this perfection. With my own hand I placed before him the soup tureen, with my own hand I ladled it out. He inhaled its divine essence, and then, your honor, he reached for the salt. Mon Dieu, I destroy him." The prefect embraced the artist and took him out to lunch. Thus art was vindicated and the incident closed. In the chemistry of cooking, enough is too much. The immortals who have contributed recipes to this volume were born with a silver spoon not in their mouths, but in their hands. The cap and apron, not the cap and bells, is the garb in which they perform. Secrets handed down through generations are thrown with a wanton hand on the pages that comprise this volume. Sauces from the South, chowders from New England, barbecued masterpieces from the West, grilled classics from field and stream, ragouts, stews, desserts, dressings are hung within reach of all, like garlic clusters from the rafters of opportunity. Reach up and help yourself. Be not disturbed by occasional jocund phrases in this symposium. Behind them is probably concealed a savory or a flavor. A long paragraph may conclude with full particulars concerning the architecture of a gastronomic dream. Turn the pages slowly lest you be overwhelmed by the richness of the menu. The late King Edward, upon bidding the later Carlos of Portugal Godspeed back to his native shores, inquired, "By what were you most impressed during your visit to the British Isles?" "Roast beef," said Carlos, expanding in ecstasy. "And what else?" inquired Edward. "Well," said Carlos, "the boiled beef wasn't so damned bad." It is one thing to cook food, and another to consume it. This inspired tome is the product of cooks who are not afraid to take their own medicine. The names of many of the dishes catalogued herein lies on the tongues of the mob, but the delicacies themselves do not. This book brings within the reach of all opportunities that up to now have been denied them. Given a first-class stove, a few simple ingredients, and a copy of this book, hunger can be abolished wherever English is read. Rossini, the musician, also a chef, after writing the score of The Barber of Seville, was informed by the director that a prelude was required immediately. Rossini repaired to his kitchen, cooked himself a perfect dinner, consumed it alone, and went to bed where, in a reclining position with score sheets all about him, he wrote a brilliant introduction to his brilliant opera. Suddenly, a gust of wind entered unbidden at the window and scattered the precious sheets about the room. Several disappeared through the lattice. Rossini, heavy with the consequences of his culinary genius, rewrote a fresher and better prelude, tucked it under his corpulent person, and rolled over for a final nap, after which he hastened to the opera house with his masterpiece. His best work was done on a full stomach. Brillat-Savarin, author of Gastronomy as a Fine Art, rather whimsically names Gasteria the 10th and fairest of the Muses. The writers of this book name her as the first. RHD 1. Meredith Nicholson. Wabash Valley Steak. No man can be a hero in his own kitchen. No man with the slightest regard for domestic peace will ever permit his wife to see him cook without having outsiders present. The psychology of this is obvious. Impatient though a woman may be of her husband's attempts to show that he is a real sport and skilled in all the arts of social entertaining, before guests, she is likely to manifest a modest degree of pride in his performances. Or even if slightly contemptuous, she is moved to assume a chaffing attitude that adds to the general good feeling. I beg not to be confused with the type of bachelor club man who is a perfect wizard with the chafing dish. I have always viewed those birds with suspicion. Their tricks are few and easy of accomplishment, stunts with mushrooms, or chicken a la king done nonchalantly in a dinner coat. I sing my fiercest hymn of hate of those persons. My own method is to assume full charge of an orderly kitchen, removing coat and waistcoat, donning an apron and attacking the job without apology or simper or the silly pretense that I'm not sure of the result. Not sure. Except in the case of colored women cooks, who trust to inspiration and achieve miracles without, seemingly, knowing how they do 'em. Except, I say in such instances, cookery is an exact science. If you follow a good rule and know how to regulate the range and have a true eye and a cute nose, failure is obliterated from the lexicon. And now for my scenario, which I stole from a lady, who in turn stole it, I dare say, from some cookbook. I might pretend that I invented it, but I didn't. All I claim is that it offers an Olympian feast, particularly if you can accompany it with hot biscuits, which I admit are beyond my powers. The recipe. Take a round steak cut 2 inches thick and beat a cup of flour into it. Heat a large skillet till it is piping hot with lard covering the bottom about 1 inch. Put in the steak, cover immediately, and allow it to cook about 5 minutes, turning once. Then cover it with a sauce composed in this wise: 4 large tomatoes, 4 onions, 4 green mango peppers, 4 ripe pimentos. Put through a grinder or better still chop thoroughly with a chopper in a wooden bowl. Don't skimp on this labor, the chopping must be done conscientiously. Season with salt and pour over the steak, cook slowly for 2 hours. When done, turn into a large platter and serve piping hot. 2. Rex Beach. Onion clam chowder. To each 10 oz can of Pioneer brand minced clams, use 1 pound of sliced Spanish or white onion. For good-sized chowder, take 6 large onions, white, and cut in lengths 1 inch long. Pour the juice from the clams into saucepan, add onions and a little water and boil thoroughly until onions are well cooked and soft. Then add clams which have been taken out of the can and put into a dish, and stew 5 minutes before onions are done. Next, place in a stew pan about a pint of cream or half cream and half milk and let come to a boil. After the clams have been in with the onions for about 3 minutes, pour on the hot milk and season to taste with salt and pepper. If serving in a soup plate, a little chopped parsley adds to the attractiveness of the dish. Then eat it. You can substitute for fresh milk or cream, Carnation canned milk diluted, 2/3 milk to 1/3 water. The soup should be thick and not too watery. This can be regulated by amount of milk added. 3. Hudson Maxim. Spaghetti. Take 1 package of vermicelli or spaghetti and put it into a saucepan, crushing it in the hand, then put in hot water, and salt a little more than will suit the taste, and boil for an hour. While the vermicelli or spaghetti is cooking, take a quart of milk and heat 3/4, or 24 ounces of it until it boils. Then stir into the 8 ounces of cold milk a level cupful of flour or 2 tablespoonfuls of flour, pretty well heaped, and then stir the thickened milk into the boiling milk and cook slowly for 10 minutes. Then add 3/4 of a pound of good, ripe, old American cheese and about half a pound of butter. Then drain the water off the vermicelli or spaghetti and put in from 1 1/2 pints to a quart of canned tomatoes. Heat the vermicelli or spaghetti to the boiling point, and while the mixture of cheese, butter, milk, and flour is still hot, stir the two together, then keep hot and serve hot. Do not boil anymore, because further boiling would tend to cause the tomatoes to coagulate the milk in the mixture. I prefer to use a mixture of spaghetti and vermicelli instead of all spaghetti or all vermicelli. 4. Warren G. Harding. Waffles, eggs, tablespoons, sugar, tablespoons, butter, teaspoon, salt, pint milk, flour, to make thin batter, large teaspoons of baking powder. Beat yolks of eggs, add sugar and salt, melt butter, add milk and flour. Last, just before ready to bake, add beaten whites of eggs and baking powder. Bake on hot waffle irons. Editor's note: there is a great deal of argument about the proper dressing for waffles. Various gravies are used by one school of waffle eaters, while honey, maple syrup, and various specially flavored sugar powders are preferred by another. President Harding is a staunch upholder of the gravy school and likes his in the form of creamed chipped beef. 5. Ellis Parker Butler. Bouillabaisse Joe Tilden. In a soup kettle, put 4 tablespoonsful of genuine olive oil. When hot enough, fry in it 2 large onions, sliced, and 2 cloves of garlic, chopped. Cut 2 pounds of any sort of firm, white-textured fish into small pieces and put in the kettle, just covering the mixture with warm water. Now have the 18th Amendment repealed and add to the mixture 1 cup of white wine, the juice of half a lemon, 2 large tomatoes, peeled and cut up, pepper, salt, and 1 or 2 bay leaves. Cook this briskly for 12 minutes, by which time the liquor should be 1/3 evaporated. Now add a tablespoonful of chopped parsley. Joe Tilden added a pinch of saffron, but I don't care for it. Cook 2 minutes longer and serve ladled on slices of French bread. Editor's note: Mockwins have made a luncheon specialty of bouillabaisse for many years. They add lobster and eel. Here is a wonderful dish to experiment with. Great fun and delicious results if you try it once or twice. It's a habit-forming dish, so beware. 6. Jules J. Jusserand. Ambassador to the United States from France. Radish salad. The French ambassador presents his compliments and begs to state that he does not believe that any dish or food is more palatable than a salad of radishes. The radishes to be cut in very thin slices and to be seasoned with the usual salad dressing. Editor's note: this salad will be at its best if the foundation, upon which the thin slices of radish are placed, is made of small crisp leaves of romaine. The usual dressing, French, of course, is prepared in this way. To 1 tablespoonful of lemon or vinegar, add 3 tablespoonsful of the best olive oil, a dash of black pepper, and a half teaspoonful of salt. Beat well with a silver fork and add enough paprika to give it a ruddy color and a rich flavor. If the salad dish is rubbed with garlic, it will do no great harm to the mixture. 7. Bruce Barton. Rice pudding. I am president of the SRRRP, the Society for Restoration of Raisins to Rice Pudding. I have made a list of New York hotels and clubs and rated them according to the number of raisins they put in a portion of rice pudding as follows. Class D, no raisins. Class C, 1 raisin. Class B, 3 or more raisins. Class A, plenty of raisins. To my mind, rice pudding without raisins is like Hamlet without the eggs. Cup rice, cups milk, eggs, a half cup sugar, teaspoonful salt, package seedless raisins, teaspoon of vanilla. Bake 1 hour in a hot oven. Set the pan inside of another containing hot water. Serve with whipped cream and garnish with dromedary dates. Editor's note: cook the rice 23 minutes. 8. Richard Bennett. Liederkranz Acute La Hoosier. Run around and find a real nice Liederkranz cheese and treat it as follows to get a serving for 4 people. Mix the cheese with about 1/4 pound of butter and work into a fine paste, adding salt, pepper, French mustard, paprika, and Worcestershire sauce as you go along. Just add them to taste. When the paste is smooth, put in 1 finely chopped small green pepper, 1 small onion or chives. Mix well and serve on rye bread spread thick. To be thoroughly technical, I suppose I should have said, spread to taste. Editor's note: you can have a wonderful time and make quite a reputation for yourself by inventing cheese combinations. Ordinary cream cheese makes a splendid base for original mixtures. Try combinations of finely minced pimento, celery, olives, chives, and peppers, green and red, and anything else that promises well. 9. Walt Louderback. Corn chowder. I believe my favorite recipe is corn chowder. The appetite for this dish must be approached from the windy side of a promontory in early spring with a 60-pound pack between the shoulder blades. Aforementioned pack to contain for a couple of congenial souls a pound of bacon, a pound of dry onions, 2 cans of corn, and 1 large tin of condensed milk. Cut the bacon up into small half-inch squares and start it frying. Simultaneously slice the onions and give them the heat. If, after the aroma from these two begins to permeate the air, you feel like risking their falling into the fire, start boiling the corn and milk. Before the onions are too thoroughly cooked, stir them into the bacon, at which time the battle for the supremacy of the appetizing odors is occupying most of your attention. Now throw the bacon and onions into the corn pot, and wait as long as you are able so that the ingredients become thoroughly familiar with one another. Write me as soon as you get home, if you don't remember that day, until you are an old man. To make this sound extremely professional, I suppose I should add, season to taste, but do not mind if a few ashes get mixed in by mistake. 10. Captain Robert A. Bartlett, USA. Codfish. Here is my favorite dish, viz., fresh Labrador codfish caught during the Kaplan School. The fish is at this time in splendid condition. Here is the recipe. Place a small bake pot upon a wood fire, then take a few strips of fat pork, cut up into small pieces, and put into the bake pot. When the pork fat has melted, you cut the fish into several small pieces and place in the pot. In about 20 minutes, the fish is cooked. The fish must be eaten from the pot with a wooden spoon. 11. George F. Wirtz. Sweet potato pone. There are 2 sure ways of identifying a true Southerner. One of them is to play Dixie. Unlike your Northerner or counterfeit Southerner who springs to his feet and looks exalted and proud when the band strikes up that swinging anthem, your true or Southern Southerner rarely springs. Generally, he just sets and waggles one boot and looks happy or sentimental, according to his nature. That is one way of detecting your true Southerner. The second and surer way is to announce in a tremulous voice, "Gemmin, dat potato pone am done set." The sweet potato pone is strictly a Southern dish. It is served south of the Mason and Dixon line hot and smoking. You don't need much experience as a cook, although the old rule which also places perfect after practice of course holds good. Your 9th potato pone will be better than your 3rd. Here is the how. Grind up raw sweet potatoes in a meat chopper until you have 1 quart. Mix the grindings thoroughly in a bowl with molasses. Enough molasses so the mass is soft and sticky or spongy. Mix in a heaping tablespoonful of lard. Add a teaspoonful of allspice. Put the mixture in a cake tin and place in a slow oven. Stir constantly until a rich brown hue is attained, then smooth over with a knife or spoon and allow to bake slowly until a mellow brown crust is formed. Remove from oven, allow to cool slightly, cut in slices and serve. General Robert E. Lee would walk 10 miles for a slice of it. 12. Gellet Burgess. Pandowdy. In a quart pudding dish, arrange alternate layers of sliced apples and bits of bread. Place on each layer dots of butter, a little sugar, and a pinch each of ground cinnamon, cloves, and allspice. When the dish is filled, pour over it half a cupful each of molasses and water, mixed well. Cover the top with bread crumbs. Place the dish in a pan containing hot water and bake for 3/4 of an hour, or until the apples are soft. Serve hot with cream or any light pudding sauce. Raisins or chopped almonds are sometimes added. 13. William Allen White. Vegetable salad. My idea of good food is a vegetable salad. Any kind of a vegetable salad is good. Some are better than others. Here is a recipe for a French dressing on a lettuce salad, which you should try on your meat grinder, or your potato masher, or your rolling pin, or whatever kitchen utensil you can play. Get a crisp head of lettuce, discard the outer green leaves, using the inner yellow and white. Wash it thoroughly, and after pulling it apart, dry each leaf with a tea towel. Put it in a big bowl, a big mixing bowl, 6 inches deep anyway. Then set that to one side and get about as much onion as the end of your first finger would make if it was chopped off at the second joint. Mince that. Put it in the bottom of a bowl. Take a large tablespoon. Put in salt and paprika to taste, and don't be afraid of making it salty. Then add oil and vinegar, about 3 or 4 to 1, mixing them in the spoon until it slops over into the onion. And then stir the salt and paprika and oil and vinegar down into the bowl of minced onion, taking a salad fork and jabbing it around in the mixture until the onion has been fairly well crushed and the onion flavor permeates the mixed oil and vinegar. And the salt and paprika have become for the moment a part of the mass. Don't let it stand a second, but pour it quickly into the bowl of dry lettuce and then stir like the devil. Keep on stirring, stir some more, and serve as quickly as possible. Cheese may be mashed into the onion before putting on the oil and vinegar and paprika and salt. If one wants to add tomatoes, wait until the last 3 jabs of the stirring fork into the lettuce, and then quarter the tomatoes and turn them in just before you turn the lettuce over the last 2 or 3 times. This is done so that the watery juice of the tomatoes won't get smeared over the oil on the lettuce leaves. If you stir the tomatoes in early, you get a runny, watery, gooey mess. Cucumbers may be added, and they should be stirred in rather earlier than the tomatoes in the business of mixing the lettuce leaves and the dressing. Green peppers may be added if they are cut into strings, but too much outside fixings spoils the salad for me. The tomatoes are about as far as one can go wisely. 14. Irvin S. Cobb. Hog jowl and turnip greens. Paducah style. For a person who has written so copiously about food and the pleasures of eating it, I probably know less of the art of preparing it than any living creature. I cannot give my favorite recipe because I have none, but I am glad to give the names of my 2 favorite dishes, to wit, as follows: St. Hog jowl and turnip greens, Paducah style, another helping of the same. Editor's note: hog jowl, Paducah style, may be prepared like this. Get the jowl. Some prefer it cooked and served with the bone, others remove the bone before serving. Boil it in well-salted water for 30 minutes, then add the turnip greens and boil at least 30 minutes longer. Serve with plenty of butter for dressing. A dash of vinegar and a semicolon of mustard are used by some folks who are hard to please. Beet greens could be used, but they are not considered au fait, and to use spinach is an absolute faux pas. 15. Richard Walton Tully. Hawaiian croquettes acute, la, the bird of paradise. It was about 15 years ago that I first visited the Hawaiian Islands in search of material for my play, The Bird of Paradise. And during the course of my sojourn I made many friends among the natives, often living weeks at a time with them in out-of-the-way villages. Although their food was radically different from ours in many of its contents and modes of making, it was always palatable, and often strikingly delicious. However, most of the native dishes contained ingredients which we cannot obtain here, but I did learn how to make what some of my friends have nicknamed Hawaiian croquettes, a la bird of paradise, the materials for which are easily procured. And it is a dish so wonderfully appetizing that I constantly prepare it for guests of Epicurean tastes. First, grate the meat of half a coconut, and add to it a cup of cow's milk, mixing thoroughly and straining through cloth. Melt 2 tablespoonsful of butter over a low flame, rubbing into it with the back of a spoon 5 tablespoonsful of flour, stirring until very smooth. Then add slowly the strained coconut and milk liquid, stirring constantly until very thick. Season meanwhile with 1½ teaspoonsful of salt, 1 of paprika, and 1 of grated onion. Finally add 2 cups of cold, boiled, shredded mullet or any other firm white fish, and 2 cups of cold, boiled, chopped lobster, and after stirring allow to cool. Shape into croquettes or balls, allowing a rounded tablespoonful to each ball. Roll in fine cracker crumbs, dip into an egg which has been slightly beaten, and to which 1/4 of a cup of water has been added. Again roll in cracker crumbs. Have a deep pan of fat, hot enough to fry a piece of bread a golden brown while you count 40, and cook the croquettes therein for about a minute. Then drain on paper and serve with olives. 16. William Johnston. Oysters pêcheurs. 1 keg of freshly dredged oysters, put on the deck of the schooner, not later than 8 p.m. 100 pounds of ice put on top of the oysters. Shell and eat at 5 a.m. on the way to the fishing grounds with salt to taste, and occasional draughts of hot coffee. 17. Dr. Charles M. Sheldon. Likes bread and milk. A recipe of my favorite dish is very simple, bread and milk with American cheese broken into it. I eat this dish once a day every day and find it wholesome and nourishing. It does not require any skillful putting together, simply a good appetite and a taste for that sort of provender. If there is an apple pie anywhere around to top it off with, I do not despise that. I find as a rule that the simpler and more elementary the food, the better so far as the body is concerned. And take it the year around a bowl of milk with fresh bread and rich American cheese, finishing up with good apple pie like Mother used to make, is all the midday meal I need. I can work on that all the afternoon and feel better than if I had had a 7-course dinner. 18. James Montgomery Flagg. James Montgomery Suds. This is a dessert. When a Swedish cook is put on her medal to suggest a dessert, something different, she stands a while in uffish thought, then breaks out into a smile of satisfaction and says, "Snow pudding, it's Swede law." The Swedes must suggest snow pudding when asked for an original thought in the dessert line. So this dessert of mine was a protest. There is one very difficult ingredient, wine jelly. The jelly is easy enough, but where in gel do you get the wine? If you don't have wine jelly, it's all off, no use beginning. If you can get the wine, then you put some cut-up oranges in wine jelly with an inch layer of beaten whites of eggs on top and lightly brown this. A loose custard is poured on each helping. It sounds rather punk and ladyshow-journalish, but is a perfectly good dessert. 19. Roy L. McCardell. Eggs mushroomet. This is the queen of breakfast dishes and should be served, of course, with broiled ham, the king of breakfast dishes, hot buttered toast, and several cups of fresh-made, fragrant and just strong enough to bring out full flavor, percolated coffee. Recipe. Peel and slice a half pound of fresh mushrooms and cook in butter in old-fashioned frying pan till nearly done. The pan is now good and hot. Moderate the heat and put in 3 fresh eggs and fry them very slowly, constantly basting top of eggs with the hot butter the mushrooms have been cooking in. Cook well, slowly and thoroughly till all the mushrooms that attach are nestling in the white of the eggs like plums in a pudding. Serve, when thoroughly cooked, with the broiled ham, fresh coffee, and hot buttered toast. This dish, as here described, is for one person only, as it is too good to be shared with anybody else. P.S. Eggs should never be fried so quickly that the whites are cooked to isinglass. Cook them slowly, surely, thoroughly, and baste with hot mushroom butter as directed, and you will have eggs mushroomet and have eaten a poem. 20. Judge Ben B. Lindsay. Bran muffins. Judge Lindsay's favorite recipe is one for bran muffins, as follows. Pint milk, egg, a half pound wheat flour, 3/4 pound bran flour, tablespoonsful molasses, ounces, pecan meats, a half s or a 1/4 s. Ounces sugar, ounces, butter, a 1/4 ounce salt, ounces, sultana raisins, ounce baking powder. Sufficient for 18 muffins. Bake 30 minutes in well-heated oven. Editor's note, the addition of pecan meats with the raisins produces a muffin that, well, the line might better have ended thus, produces a muffin. 21. Otis Skinner. Artichokes, Mr. Antonio. Force a small opening in the head of the artichoke by giving it a blow upon the table. Then, into the center pour a dessert spoonful of olive oil in which a little salt and pepper have been mixed. To this, add 1/4 clove of garlic. Place the artichokes in such position that they may not be overturned. Surround them with cold water and allow them to boil, covered and undisturbed, for half an hour. This is an Italian method, and by following it, one may understand why an artichoke need not taste as flat as boiled hay. 22. Dan Beard. A burgoo. Clean and dress the meat of a soft-shelled turtle, a painted turtle, a polka dot turtle, or almost any other kind of turtle. Clean and dress a rabbit, a ruffled grouse, moose meat, elk meat, deer meat, sheep meat, in fact any sort of game. Cut your meat into pieces about the size of inch cubes. Save the bones, especially the marrow bones, to put in with the meat. Add some salt pork cut into cubes if you have it. If you have been thoughtful enough to supply your outfit with some ill-smelling but palatable dry vegetables, they will add flavor to your burgoo. Put all the material in a kettle and fill the kettle half full of water. If you have beans and potatoes, do not put them in with the meat because they will go to the bottom and scorch. While the stuff you have already put in the kettle is boiling or simmering, peel your onions and quarter them, scrape your carrots and slice them, peel your potatoes, cut them up into pieces, about inch cubes. After your cauldron has commenced to boil, dump in the fresh vegetables. They will cool off the water and kill the boil. Do not let it come to a boil again, but put it over a slow fire and allow it to simmer. There should always be enough water to cover the vegetables. A can of tomatoes will add greatly to the flavor. Use no sweet vegetables like beets or sweet potatoes. Put the salt and pepper in just before you take it off the fire. When the burgoo is done, strain it into tin cups. The liquid out of an olive bottle adds greatly to the flavor if you pour it in while the stew is cooking. If you have such luxuries in camp as olives and lemons, a slice of lemon with an olive in each cup over which the liquid is poured makes a dish too good for any old king that ever lived. The excellence of a burgoo depends upon two things: the materials you have of which to make it and the care you take in cooking it. No two burgoos are alike, and every one I ever tasted was mighty good. Civilized material such as can be purchased at the butcher shop and the vegetable store makes a good soup, but the goo isn't there. Consequently, you cannot call it a burgoo. 23. De Wolf Hopper. Raspberry shortcake. Raspberry shortcake, with the assistance of a rich and kindly disposed cow, meaning lacteal fluid on same, that is my chief debauch. Recipe for 2 people. Sift a level teaspoonful of baking powder and a scant half teaspoonful of salt through a cupful of flour. See that the mixture is thorough. Take lard or butter is best, and work it well into the flour until it crumbles under the fingers. Use plenty of finger work. Now add a very small quantity of milk and work into a dough that is easily rolled and flattened on a floured board. Roll out and cut in round cakes to fit cake tins. Have cakes about a ½ inch thick. Bake in a moderate oven until light golden in color. In serving, have lots of berries, half of them crushed. Split the shortcakes and butter them if desired. Above all, use thick, rich cream in generous doses. The dish is really best when the cakes are just from the oven instead of cold. The same goes for strawberry shortcake, and makes the only real genuine old-fashioned shortcake. 24. Chick Evans. Tomato soup. I have a fondness for tomato soup and steak without grizzles. Since almost anyone can broil a steak, I'll pass that up and tell you how to play cream of tomato right around the kitchen course in par. You can take ripe tomatoes, cut them up, stew them and put them through a strainer. You can add a bit of soup stock and seasoning and all that, but the easy way is to take some of Mr. Campbell's tomato soup and add milk instead of water. Only use more soup per person than the can label calls for. Don't boil it, but when the soup is good and hot, give it a bit of informal seasoning, and then stir in a lot of stiff whipped cream. Keep back enough of the whipped cream to put a big spoonful of it in the center of each plate. Use the can opener at the first tee, and with luck you'll be on the dinner table in an easy 3. Play out of the soup plate with a good-sized spoon for a par 4, and there you are. You'll be able to whip the cream without detailed directions. The important thing is choosing the right egg beater or cream whipper or whatever you use. The next important thing in whipping cream is stance. You'll gradually acquire that after you've spattered the front of your vest a time or two and hooked a few long ones to the wallpaper. I believe that there are some safety devices for whipping cream, but they take all the sport and excitement out of the thing. 25. Joshua Hatfield. Eggplant sauté à l'Alexander. For about 12 people. Take 2 large eggplants, have them peeled and cut into large flakes of about 1¼ inches in size, season with pepper and salt, pass through flour and fry in hot fat pan to brown color. Chop finely and sauté to yellow color, 6 French shallots and 2 beans of garlic, and add to the eggplant. Keep stirring on moderate fire for about 3 minutes, serve in vegetable dish and spray with chopped parsley. Potato sticks Alexander. Take 6 nice boiled potatoes, let them drain and pass through sieve, put in stewing pan on the fire, add 4 yolks of eggs, 1 spoonful of fresh butter, 1 spoonful of puff paste, 1 green pepper, 1 sweet pepper, 2 slices of boiled ham and parsley all finely chopped, and pepper and salt to taste. Mix while on the fire for about 5 minutes, then let it cool down. Of this dough, roll sticks of a ½ inch in diameter by 1½ inches long, pass through flour, beaten egg, and white breadcrumbs. Fry in fat pan and serve on napkin with fried parsley. Cold sauce Alexander. Served at India House with cold salmon. For 12 people. Incorporate into good mayonnaise, chopped chives, parsley, chervil, 2 tablespoonsful of French mustard and dash of Worcestershire sauce, paprika, pepper and salt. Stir well. Supperarm of chicken à Alexander. Take the breast of a 4-pound roasting chicken, stuff very lightly with a filling made of chicken, cream and fresh mushrooms mixed with white of egg, and have it poached in butter and chicken broth. After being done, remove the supperarm and have the sauce reduced to 1/4 of its volume. Then incorporate first 1 tablespoonful of sweet butter and add 6 finely chopped French shallots, 1/2 glass of white wine, 2 spoonsful of brown sauce, demi-glace. Season well with pepper and salt. Let it cook for about 3 minutes and strain through fine sieve. Dish supperarm on a fried canapé cut to shape and sauce it. Garniture. Fried eggplant cut in julienne-shaped green peppers, sauté in butter, fresh tomatoes, sauté. Arrange the vegetables around the supperarm on platter by keeping them each separately and serve sauce apart. Fondue au fromage à Alexander. Melt 2 tablespoonsful of butter and work with 3 spoonsful of flour into light brown color. Add 1 pint of milk, let it boil for 5 minutes, constantly stirring. Incorporate a 1/2 pound of grated Swiss cheese or domestic Roquefort, a little salt and paprika, and bind with 6 yolks of eggs. Let cool down. This preparation cut and roll into sticks of 3/4 inches diameter by 1/2 inches long. Pass through flour, beaten egg and breadcrumbs, and fry crisp in hot fat pan. Serve a napkin with fried parsley. Poached eggs and crostata à Alexander. Work into a dough a 1/2 pound of flour, 1 tablespoonful of butter, 2 whole eggs, and a little salt. Cut this pie crust dough into tart forms, say 3 inches in diameter, place in molds and bake in moderate oven. Melt 2 tablespoonsful of fresh butter, add 12 finely chopped shallots, a 1/4 pound of finely chopped fresh mushrooms, pepper, salt, and let it simmer by constantly stirring until it is thoroughly cooked, and finish with chopped parsley. Mix well into this 2 tablespoonsful of demi-glace. Cover the bottom of tartlets with a layer of this preparation. Place a freshly poached egg on top. Cover with thick cream sauce, spray with grated Parmesan cheese, a dash of melted butter, and bake in moderate oven for about 5 minutes. Dish up on napkin with crisp fried parsley. Romaine salad à Alexander. Decorate 1/2 head of romaine with sliced grapefruit, sliced orange and white grapes split and seeded, or large black cherries. Prepare dressing as follows. Incorporate into French dressing finely chopped chives, French mustard, and teaspoonful of red currant jelly. Mix well and use as dressing for above salad. Rognons de veau à Alexander. Take 6 fresh veal kidneys, remove skin and fat, and cut to very small cubes, adding a 1/2 pound of very fine chopped fresh mushrooms, and put aside. Melt 2 tablespoonsful of butter with 12 finely chopped shallots and brown to a nice golden color. Add the kidneys and mushrooms and let it simmer for about 8 minutes, taking good care not to let it cook too much, preventing the kidneys from getting hard. Incorporate into this appareil 1 pint of demi-glace, 1 cup of bread crumbs for thickening, chopped parsley, pepper, and salt, and let it cool down. Cut round canapés of bread 3 inches in diameter and a 1/2 inch thick, and fry in butter to crusts, and drain. Then cover the crusts with this preparation to a half ball shape, pass through beaten egg, spray with a mixture of breadcrumbs and grated Parmesan cheese, and dash of melted butter on top and bake in moderate oven for about 10 minutes. Dish up on napkin with fried parsley, and serve with demi-glace sauce separate. Strawberry tartlets Alexander. Work into a dough a 1/2 pound of flour, a 1/4 pound sugar, 1 tablespoonful of butter, 2 whole eggs, and a little salt. Cut the dough to oval or round tartlet forms, have them baked in moderate oven, and after they are cooled down, fill out the bottom of the tartlets with custard, crème pâtissière. Cover the cream entirely with a layer of selected fresh whole strawberries, and apply, with a decorating brush, lightly diluted red currant jelly. Spray the top with finely chopped pistachio nuts. Baked oysters Alexander. Open 6 large oysters, keep in deep half shell, place in roasting pan and cover with sauce Alexander as follows. 2 tablespoonsful of chili sauce, 1 tablespoonful of horseradish sauce mix, 1 tablespoonful of French mustard, 1 dash of Worcestershire sauce, finely chopped chives, salt, and pepper. Take good care the oysters are entirely covered by the sauce, then spray with bread crumbs and have them baked for about 8 minutes. A mince of chicken at Alexander. Select a choice 5-pound fowl, have it boiled, cut into flakes and put aside. Brown in saucepan a 1/4 pound of butter and 2 tablespoonsful of flour to a nice yellow color. Add to this 1 quart of chicken broth and let it boil for a few minutes, keeping on stirring it. Beat into this sauce 6 yolks of eggs and the juice of 2 lemons, working it all the time, but taking good care not to let it boil anymore. Pass it through a fine sieve and keep it hot in bain-marie. Cut into flakes and sauté in butter 1/2 pound of fresh mushrooms, then take a 1/4 pound flaked boiled Virginia ham, 1 bunch of finely chopped tarragon, and mix this with the chicken flakes in the thoroughly heated sauce. Season with salt, pepper, and paprika to taste and serve in chafing dish. Place on freshly made toast or hot buckwheat cakes. 26. Stuart Edward White. Mulligan. This is a camp dish to be cooked over an open fire. I guarantee nothing on a stove. I know nothing of stoves and have a dark suspicion of them. To make it, place in a kettle half full of cold water either a fish cut in chunks, B, a couple of dozen clams, or C, a 1/2 dozen chunks of venison about the size of a tennis ball, depending on whether you want a fish mulligan, a clam mulligan, or a game mulligan. Also depending on what you have. Also a 1/2 dozen peeled potatoes and 3 large onions. Salt and pepper, bring slowly to a boil. Add a handful of cubes of salt pork or bacon. Simmer slowly until the potatoes disintegrate. If you have the remains of a can of corn or a little residue of cold rice or anything of like nature, drop them in. Next, put in all the stale bread or hard tack the traffic will bear. Dissolve a tablespoonful of flour in a little warm water and stir that in for thickening. Cook slowly until you can't stand it any longer and fly to it. 27. Oliver Herford. Fried elderberry blossoms. This sounds like a joke, but it is a perfectly serious dish. I made its acquaintance at the table of a little inn in South Baden, on the shores of Lake Constance. First, you must wait until the elderberry bushes are in full bloom. Then, you gather a good-sized bunch of them and cut off each blossom just below the point where the little stems join the main stalk. These you dip into a light egg batter such as is used to make apple fritters, lighter perhaps, taking care to cover both the flower and as much of the little stalks as possible. They should be served like fritters as soon as made. 28. Reed Smoot. Peach cobbler. One of my favorite dishes is peach cobbler. I am told that it originated in the South, but its fame has spread far beyond the limits of the Mason and Dixon line. It is made in this way. Line a baking dish or pan, about 3 1/2 inches deep, with a rich pastry. There must be no break in the pastry. Then fill the dish to the brim with peaches, ripe, luscious ones that have been pared and broken, not cut, in half. Sugar generously and leave in about 6 or 8 of the peach pits. They give a certain flavor that only peach pits may impart. Cover the peaches with an unbroken upper crust of pastry. Seal it tightly along the sides so that none of the juices or aromas may escape. Bake in a slow oven until nearly brown, then sprinkle the top with powdered sugar that will give a certain professional luster to the dish. After that, finish the browning process. A cobbler containing a quart of peaches should bake for about 1 hour. Editor's note: Senator Smoot is not alone in his partiality toward peach cobbler. Back in the days before Volstead, famous cobblers were produced just as above with the addition of brandy, say a cup to a quart of peaches. But that, of course, was a long time ago. 29. Ray Long. Shad roe. Dip the roe well in melted butter or bacon fat, place under hot broiler flame, cooking for 5 minutes on each side. Then place in a greased baking dish, season with salt, Tabasco, Worcestershire sauce, and paprika. Dot over with a little more butter or bacon fat, add a small quantity of hot water, cover closely and bake in an oven until tender, about 15 minutes. This may be garnished with crisp bacon, which should be cooked separately. Dessert. Slice fresh pineapple, cover with sugar, and put on ice for several hours. Serve with lemon water ice. 30. Kenneth C. Beaton. KCB. Lobster. Get a couple of lobsters, split and cleaned and put in a pan. And dot each piece with bits of butter and put the pan in a very hot oven and broil 10 minutes, and after that, lift meat from shell onto heated plates and serve with sauce made in a bowl with a bit of mustard, stirred in water, and a pinch of salt and of paprika, just a dash, and a scant teaspoon of walnut catsup, and a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and mix them all with half a cup of melted butter. That's just been heated and not boiled, and serve it all with a mess of potatoes, baked or boiled, and boy, oh boy, there is a dish fit for the gods, I thank you. 31. John Harvey Kellogg, M.D. Macaroni with cheese, a half cups macaroni cup, cottage cheese, hard-boiled eggs, TB. Butter cups, milk, or sufficient to cover the macaroni. Boil the macaroni in salt water until tender. Place a layer of macaroni in the bottom of a baking dish, a layer of cheese, a half C, sliced hard-boiled eggs, layer of macaroni and the cheese. Bits of butter are placed between the layers, and on the top, sprinkle cracker, bread or pep crumbs over the top, moisten with cream or bits of butter. Sufficient milk is poured over to just cover the macaroni and bake in rather a slow oven for about 45 minutes. Savory potatoes, pint sliced, potatoes a half small onion TB. Butter cup, water a half teaspoon, salt. Place the thin sliced potatoes in the bottom of a baking dish, slice the onion over this, and add the remainder of the potatoes. Pour hot water over all with butter and salt. Bake in a slow oven 2 hours. 32. Claire Briggs. Waffles. There is a simple but effective recipe for one of the kitchen's most wonderful products. 3/4 cups flour teaspoons, baking powder a half teaspoon, salt, cup milk, yolks of 2 eggs, whites of 2 eggs, tablespoon melted butter. Mix and sift dry ingredients, gradually add milk, then yolks of eggs well beaten. Next the melted butter, and last the whites of eggs, beaten stiff. Cook on a very hot and well-greased waffle iron and serve with maple syrup. Editor's note: President Harding favors creamed chipped beef as a dressing for waffles, while Mr. Briggs is a staunch supporter of the sweet tooth school. For those who like the sweet stuff, this variation of plain maple syrup is worth trying. Put 1/2 pound of strained honey in a double boiler or a small pan placed in water. Heat very slowly, adding a half pint of pure maple syrup with which has been previously mixed 2 teaspoons of powdered cinnamon and a dash of caraway. Heat and stir until thoroughly mixed, but do not boil. Serve warm. 33. Edward W. Bach. Asparagus. The food I like. The dishes I really crave. The things off which I would dine every day of my life. I never see them, I never have them. Why? Because Mrs. Bach says there is not a digestible dish amongst them. But I often think of them, wistfully, oh so wistfully. Here they are. Softshell crabs done in hot olive oil, or hardshell crabs, deviled, lobster with mayonnaise, filet mignon, panned in brown butter, veal loaf, roast pork tenderloin, fried eels, sausages, never had enough, ditto scrapple, currants with a hot roll lightly wound through them, hot fresh doughnuts. French pancakes of a thinness like unto gauze, strong black coffee, chocolate meringue glacé. But as I never had the good fortune to know the above foods at first hand, I cannot well give you the recipes for them. Perhaps you might like to know my favorite way of serving asparagus in my home, Dutch fashion, as I remember it in my native land of the Netherlands. The asparagus bunches are placed in a double boiler upright, the tips being above the water and thus cooked by steam. Passed at table, with the asparagus, is hard-boiled egg put through a ricer, a small quantity of finely ground nutmeg, and a dish of hot, melted butter. It always has to be explained to guests, but once the introduction is over, the convert is made. 34. Charles Hanson Town. Corn pudding. There is no dish I like better than a corn pudding made just like this. Cups of grated corn, a half cup of milk, a half cup of cream, tablespoonful of flour, a half tablespoonful of salt, teaspoonful of sugar, tablespoonful of butter, a pinch of baking powder. Cook for a half hour and serve immediately. It is brown on the top, and in a deep dish it is the most succulent course a man could wish for. I want others to share it with me. I wish I could give a party every night with this as the piece de resistance. Editor's note: In speaking of the origin of this dish, Mr. Town says that it was first made by my wonderful colored housekeeper, Hattie Jefferson. 35. Jerome de Kern. Terrapin. My favorite dish is stewed terrapin, and my recipe follows. Cut the boiled calves, liver into moderate-sized pieces, and put into stew pan with sufficient fresh butter to stew it well. In another pan, make a sauce of pre-prohibition sherry or Madeira, flavored with the beaten yolk of 1 egg, powdered nutmeg and mace, a pinch of cayenne pepper, salt to taste, enlivened with large lump of butter. If pre-prohibition sherry is not available, names and addresses of 71 bootleggers can be supplied. Stir sauce well, and just before it comes to a boil, take it off the fire. Use 3 or 4 hard-boiled hens, eggs to pinch hit for turtle's eggs, and send to the table piping hot in chafing dish. Important, serve the sauce separately. The terrapin is frequently ignored by those who prefer the flavor of the sherry. I am one of them. 36. Daniel Willard. Cottage pudding. 1 tablespoon butter, 1 cup sugar, 2 eggs, ½ cup milk, 1 large teaspoon baking powder, 1½ cups flour. Bake in a square tin and serve with strawberry sauce. Strawberry sauce. 1 large tablespoon of butter beaten to a cream. Add gradually 1½ cups powdered sugar and the beaten white of 1 egg. Beat till very light, and just before serving add 1 pint of strawberries, which have been cut in small pieces. 37. Houdini. Scalloped mushrooms and deviled eggs. The mushroom dish. Choose for this purpose fine firm ones. Pick, wash, wipe, and peel, then lay them in a deep pudding dish well buttered. Season them with pepper and salt and add a little onion. Sprinkle each layer with rolled breadcrumbs, dot with small pieces of butter, and proceed in this way until dish is full, having the top layer of breadcrumbs. Bake in a moderate oven. The eggs. Boil the eggs hard. Remove shells and cut eggs in half, slicing a bit off the ends to make them stand upright. Extract yolks and rub them to a smooth paste with melted butter, cayenne pepper, a touch of mustard, and a dash of vinegar. Fill the hollowed whites with this and send to table upon a bed of chopped lettuce or watercress, seasoned with pepper, salt, vinegar, and a little sugar. 38. Charles P. Steinmetz. Meat loaf. I have been consulted about very many things, but this is the first time I have been consulted on gastronomical matters. But I give herewith, from my camping experience, the following favorite dish of mine. Beef, veal, and pork sirloin steak and chops, a ½ pound each. Cut off the bones and the fat from the beef and veal, leaving the fat on the pork. Then pass all 3 through the meat grinder, chopping fairly fine. Add 2 complete raw eggs and some finely sliced bacon, beechnut bacon, cut in pieces about 1 inch square, and mix everything together thoroughly, adding the proper amount of salt and pepper, and if available, some celery salt. Form into the shape of a round loaf. In a cast iron or cast aluminum frying pan, that is a pan of sufficiently heavy metal to well distribute the heat and guard against local burning, melt some butter, then put the loaf in the melted butter and cover the pan heat on a very low fire, turning over after some time, and continue for a long time until very thoroughly cooked through. Add butter once or twice when absorbed. Then uncover and greatly raise the fire, turning over after a little while so as to brown both sides. Then take out the loaf and put it on a warm platter or plate. Now pour a cup of cream or rich milk into the pan, stir until the sediment in the pan is dissolved, and heat until you get a good brown gravy. Pour this over the loaf and serve with boiled mealy potatoes. What is left over can be eaten cold, sliced, and served on buttered toast. 39. Charlie Chaplin. Steak and kidney pie. This is how I do it. Get 2 pounds lean steak beef, kidney, small onion. Cut the steak and kidney into 2-inch pieces. Flour them. Add pepper and salt to taste. Line a deep pie dish with rich pie crust after having buttered dish. Put inverted egg cup in center. Fill with meat and finely chopped onion. Add water almost to top of dish. Roll pastry 1/2 inch thick and cover all. Make several small holes in pastry to permit steam to escape. Bake 3 hours in moderate oven. Eat. Editor's note: steak and kidney pie is a favorite with many beside the great film comedian. Interesting variations of Mr. Chaplin's recipe are Lamb kidney instead of the beef kidney. Top crust only. Fry the meat chunks before putting them into the pie. 40. Dr. Frank Crane. Round steak. Somebody named Johnson, a name with most excellent vibrations, writes me and says that in spite of rumors he has heard, to the effect that I have a hired hand or two to write my stuff, he believes that I honestly wrote all by myself an article which appeared some time ago over my name, in which I stated I could cook round steak so that it would taste as good as fried chicken and be as tender. If you are not bluffing, he says, you could do a world of good to many housekeepers and stag clubs if you would print your recipe. The writer has worn the outer coat of enamel off his teeth in a vain attempt to make himself believe that round steak is as tender as chicken. Give us a hand, pal. Hence being called I lay my cards down, face up on the table, to wit, namely and as follows. Have the butcher cut you a round steak thin, a little thicker than a lead pencil. He will insist on cutting it thicker, saying it will be juicier and so on. Draw your revolver and compel him to obey you. Don't have the steak too thick. After cutting the steak from the piece, have him separate it into portions, each about the size of your hand. Don't try to cook the steak all in one piece. It must be in small sections, just as fried chicken is best when each joint is cooked separately. Have the butcher then take his sharp knife, which is much better for the purpose than any knife you have at home, because he knows the art of sharpening and you don't, and crisscross each piece on both sides, don't forget, so that each piece will be in tatters, almost ready to fall apart. Put in the frying pan plenty of good sweet lard. Don't use butter. It will burn. Don't fry in deep fat, as with donuts, but plenty of fat, as with fried chicken. Rub each portion of the raw steak in flour. Rub it in good, drop into the hot skillet, cover it with lid, keep covered. This cooks it through and makes it tender. Fry till a golden brown, turning once in a while. You notice the process is exactly as with fried chicken, Southern style. After you lift out the meat, put in the flour, let it scorch a bit, then pour water and milk mixed into the hot grease and meat particles left in the skillet. Just how much, you will have to find out by experiment. Let it boil up and boil down, keep stirring until you have gravy of the right consistency. Flavor according to taste with salt and pepper before cooking. If the result is not good, it is because you have not followed directions. Round steak not only is cheap, but it is all good meat. With the minimum of waste, and properly cooked it tastes better than any part of the beef. 41. Robert H. Davis. Cream sauce et acute la Worcestershire. This incomparable concoction is to be united in the bonds of holy wedlock with a piece of fried ham, the ceremony to be solemnized on a hot rasher, hooded. Select a thick slice of mild-cured ham, fry it in its own fat in a hot skillet until both sides show a golden brown. Place in a large cooking spoon 1 spoonful of Worcestershire sauce and 1 heaping tablespoon of rich cream. Set the cooking spoon in frying pan beside ham until Worcestershire and cream become warm, adding a few drops of ham fat while the sauce is heating. Complete the perfect union on the rasher by pouring the sauce over the ham. Put a Mendelssohn Wedding March disc on your phonograph and conclude the honeymoon at the table. Editor's note. This sauce was created by Mr. Davis at a breakfast given at the Wyandanch Club, Long Island, by Mr. Charles R. Flint to Admiral Guy Gaunt of the British Navy and Irvin S. Cobb of the United States of America in 1915. 42. John A. Dix. Fried trout. For my favorite dish, unhesitatingly, baked beans and pork country style. As to my favorite recipe, that requires many condiments, among others a mountain trout stream, the inspiration of the odor of the woods, the vigor of early morning and the pursuit. The requirements, just enough trout plus a few. From the pack basket, take a piece of pork or bacon, fry well in a skillet over a carefully laid fire. Prepare the fish and roll well in fine breadcrumbs seasoned with salt and pepper. When the fish are done a golden brown, remove from the skillet and partake in the aboriginal manner, eating from the fingers. Kings could do no more. 43. Guy Bates Post. Lamb curry et acute la Omar, the tent maker, onion diced, cup of stock, a half cup of rice, water cup of potatoes, which have been previously boiled, and diced cups of lamb. Cold roast preferred, and cut into the size of Domino's tablespoons of curry powder, Cross, and Blackwell's, or other imported. Never domestic zest of 1 lemon salt to taste. Give me the above ingredients, and I will make you the meat dish which, above all others, is, to my way of thinking, the most savory and delicious. 8 years ago, when I was first playing Omar the Tent Maker, I became acquainted with various members of the Persian embassy, who were especially interested in the play because of its Persian locale, and it was while dining in the home of one of these gentlemen that I first became initiated to lamb curry. That is, lamb curry as it really should be cooked. Begging the recipe from my host, it has ever since been the favorite piece de resistance in my home. First of all, you brown the onion in olive oil in a deep pan, then add the stock, rice water, salt, and curry powder, the latter having been mixed with a little of the rice water to ensure a smooth sauce. Simmer slowly till the oil and curry float in dark blobs, add the lamb, and continue simmering and stirring until just before serving, when the lemon juice should be dripped in. Lamb curry should always be served with hot rice, taking on your fork equal portions of both, increasing the amount of rice in case you find the curry too hot. Never drink water with curry, as it intensifies the burning sensation. The amount of curry powder used in the above recipe can be increased or decreased according to the individual taste. Cold-cooked shrimps, lobster, veal, or chicken may be used in place of lamb, but never beef. Personally, I find that lamb produces the finest curry dish. 44. Dr. Don Rafael H. Elizalde, Minister from Ecuador. Sancocho. 4 pounds of loin beef cut into 2-inch squares. 8 good-sized potatoes. 5 or 6 ears of green corn, broken in lengths of 2 inches. Water sufficient to make the amount of soup required. Boil until the beef is tender, with the potatoes, then add the corn and cook until done. Onions. Slice thin 3 large onions, boil for half an hour, drain and cool, then pour olive oil over them. Banana paste. 1 quart of milk in a double boiler. Add 2 heaping tablespoonsful of banana flour mixed in a little milk to a smooth paste, and cook from half hour to an hour. How to serve. Strain the soup through a colander and serve in a tureen, placing meat, potatoes, corn, onions, and banana paste in separate, individual dishes from which each person may help themselves. In South America, the yucca and plantains are used in this dish. Yapingach. Make potato cakes by the ordinary recipe, but before shaping them place a piece of cream cheese the size of a walnut in the center of each. Then fry brown in very little fat. Sauce. 1 quart of milk and 1/2 pound of peanuts ground fine. Boil until thick, seasoning with salt, paprika, and butter. Serve the potato cakes with fried eggs and pour the sauce over both. 45. By Dudley. Tomato sop. Slice firm, ripe tomatoes, roll in flour and fry in equal parts of lard and butter until brown on both sides. Remove several slices to a platter, stir those remaining with flour and small lumps of butter. Then thicken with milk and season to taste. Sop with bread or toast. Editor's note: this is good, but in the interest of the culinary art, it should be stated that the flour, and not the milk, is the thickening agent. Try it, you'll thank the author of Tomato Sop. 46. William Hale Thompson, Mayor of Chicago. Roast beef. My favorite food is roast beef, rare, or a good American sirloin steak, which, I take it, are so simple to prepare that they need no recipe. Suggestions. 1. Stand your roast on 2 or 3 thin slices of bacon, not too fat. 2. On the top of the roast, lay 3 or 4 thin slices of lemon, particularly if you like the outside cut. 3. If your steak looks a bit fresh, rub with lemon juice, both sides, and allow to stand several hours before broiling or frying. Don't be frightened if it turns a bit black, be glad. 4. Pan may be rubbed with garlic. 5. Steaks should be thick, particularly if you broil. 47. Booth Tarkington. Corn flakes. My favorite dish is corn flakes. They should be placed in a saucer or hollow dish, then lifted in both hands and rolled for a moment, then dropped back into the dish. After that, an indefinite quantity of cream should be poured upon them. They should be eaten with a spoon. I don't know how to prepare anything else for the table. I think the best Kennebunkport manner of steaming clams is as follows. A bushel of clams, dozen lobsters, dozen ears of sweet corn, dozen sweet potatoes, dozen eggs. A cartload of seaweed, a bonfire burning for 6 hours on rocks, then swept away. The lobsters, clams, etc., placed in the seaweed, and the seaweed on the hot rocks and covered with BBB canvas. Allow to steam until screams of distress issue from the seaweed, then be careful what you eat. 48. T.A. Dorgan. Chili con carne comes through with a natural. What is my favorite filler for the feed bag? Well, I'll be on the square with my answer. It's chili con carne. I might have said Terrapin, Maryland, or some other ritzy dish, but thought I'd better come with a natural. I'll play chili con carne and tamales as they are served in California, where I was born, against any dish I've ever forked over. Recipe. Cut, say, 2 pounds of good beef in small pieces the size of the first finger joint. Add some of the chopped fat, mix and salt. Put 2 tablespoonsful of lard in a deep pot and heat. To this add a chopped onion. When the onion is about half cooked, add the meat. Stir well until the meat has boiled down in its juice. When it starts to fry, add about 1½ pints of hot water, 3 tablespoonsful of Gebhardt's Eagle chili powder, and a few buttons of chopped garlic. Simmer and stir well until the meat is tender. 49. William D. E. Leftwich Dodd. Ragout de mouton. I think my favorite dish is ragout de mouton, or I would say the one I cook the best. The way it's done is this. Cut up lamb in small pieces and fry it in a frying pan. Slice 3 or 4 carrots and onions and fry them with it. When these are nicely browned, put into a pot, cover with water and let boil slowly for an hour. Then put in a few potatoes and turnips, cut up in small pieces, and boil until done. Season as you see fit. 50. Montague glace. Bouille. Base. Bouillabaisse is my favorite dish. I make it according to the recipe of Valentine Blanc, our cook in Nice, where we lived some years ago. Valentine could neither read nor write, nor could a story tell, but her bouillabaisse was ever so much better than that they make in Marseille, and I venture to say in Thackeray's old restaurant either. Melt about a ½ pound of butter in a saucepan. I'm aware that in Marseille they use oil, but Valentine used butter. Don't let the butter burn. Have ready 2 large chopped onions, i.e., onions chopped fine, and 2 dents of garlic also chopped fine. Cook these in the butter until tender and without burning. Have ready 3 perch and 1 haddock. That is to say, cut off the heads and tails. Some people use eels instead of haddock. I detest eels. Cut into a large saucepan the heads and tails of the fish with about a quart of water and let simmer until well cooked, say about ½ an hour. Strain out the heads and tails and give them to the cat. Add the cooked onions and garlic, butter and all to the strained bouillon from the heads and tails and allow to simmer for ½ an hour more, after seasoning to taste with salt and white pepper. Add about a gill of dry white wine of any variety, Chablis, Côtes du Rhône, or whatnot. The cheaper the wine, the better. Now take 2 smallish lobsters, alive, and if you have the heart, cut them into segments and take off the claws and cut them into segments. Cook the massacred lobster for about a quarter of an hour in the liquid or liquor or bouillon above described and add a saltspoonful of dried Spanish saffron while the whole is cooking together. If you can get mussels, cook also with the entire mess, a dozen or so, in their shells if the shells be well scrubbed in advance. Somewhere in this process, add about a tablespoonful of chopped parsley. Last of all, add the fish cut into convenient slices rather small, and let cook until done, but not long enough so that the fish becomes disintegrated. Remember, there ought to be no violent boiling. Before serving, strain off most of the liquor and serve it first as soup with a slice of toast in the bottom of the plate. If the toast has been fried in advance in good butter, so much the better, but this is not necessary. Then eat all the solid part except the shells and sop up all the remaining gravy with bread, using your fingers to do the job and not a fork. Don't leave a bit of it. There ought to be enough of this stew for 4 people, but I can usually manage the whole thing myself with only the slightest assistance from my wife. Why not to be drunk with the meal, a good burgundy bone or chambertin? Later one should eat an artichoke cold vinaigrette, then some fruit and cheese and 2 small cups of well-made black coffee. After this, it is necessary to smoke a Corona not too mild, and drink a small glass of Cointreau sec. The bread ought to be pain-rich in flutes. The fruit may be fresh apricots, a few green almonds, and perhaps some green gages. The coffee ought to be drunk, and the cigar smoked in the garden, which must be in the vicinity of Mount Boron on the Grand Corniche, or it may be in the Park Imperial. God ought to be thanked either during or after the meal, and when it becomes a little too cold in the garden, a fire should be built in the small living room, and one should read Somerville and Ross, Recollections of an Irish R.M., or Neil Lyon's Simple Simon, or Belloc's Path to Rome, or Richard Ford's Gatherings from Spain until bedtime. Repeat the whole process on the following Friday. God, how hungry I am. 51. John Philip Sousa. Pelotas e acute la Portuguese. This serves from 6 to 8 people and is my favorite dish. 1 quart can of tomatoes. Put in kettle on top of stove, simmer or let boil slowly for 1.5 hours. Add pepper, salt, 2 onions cut in fine slices, 4 allspice and 4 cloves. The cloves and allspice to be added after it starts to boil. After 2.5 hours add 2 pounds chopped beef. Add 1 onion, chopped fine, 2 cups breadcrumbs, a little parsley, salt, and pepper. Make into meatballs about the size of a plum. Put into sauce and boil 1.5 hours slowly. This makes fully 3 hours, slow boiling for the sauce. Spaghetti. Use a package or a pound of spaghetti, not macaroni. Have a large pot of boiling water with about 1 tablespoonful of salt. Slide the spaghetti into the water. Do not break it. Boil exactly 20 minutes. Must be tender, not tough nor doughy. To sauce, add 3 bay leaves 1 hour before taking off the stove. Serve spaghetti on large platter, pouring tomato sauce over it. Serve pelotas on smaller platter, allowing a small quantity of sauce to remain on them. Serve grated Parmesan cheese on side. Use a piece of cheese to grate, not bottled cheese. 52. Will Hayes. Chicken pilau. Get a fat hen, the fatter the better. Because this recipe comes from a Southern cook, there are no accurate measurements. Sam would always recommend a fat hen, the fatter the better, and enough rice and plenty of pepper. This I know. The chicken is cut up and boiled in the water until tender. Should be cooked in a good-sized flat-bottom kettle. When the chicken is tender, there should be enough of the stock to come up well around it, but not to cover it. Then put in with the chicken about a scant pint of well-washed rice. This should be stirred once, Sam says, and allowed to steam slowly an hour. Use plenty of pepper to season and salt to taste. Each grain of rice should be fat and juicy. Successfully made, it is delicious. Editor's note: the chicken pilau recommended by Mr. Hayes is delicious. A variation perhaps equally good may be had by substituting broken spaghetti or vermicelli for the rice. 53. Frank Ward O'Malley. Rum Tum Titty. Has the best Welsh rabbit backed off the stove. Take 1 country home in New Jersey. 1 dependable Applejack bootlegger. 1 cook who threatens to leave unless she can begin her nightly visits to her daughter in the village as early as 7:30 o'clock. Take 3 or 4 acquaintances who drop in for Applejack cocktails just as your cook is about to put the steak on to broil. Then, have your guests linger near the cocktail shaker until you, your wife, and especially your delayed cook are approaching hysteria. Why not stay, you now announce to your guests in desperation, and we'll all make a rum tum titty. You now tell your grateful cook not to bother preparing a meal. You next take 1 flivver and hurriedly drive her to her daughter's in the village. Then you buy in the village 1½ pounds of American cheese, 1 can of Campbell's tomato soup, and a dozen bottles of beer, real beer, if you can get it, Volstead beer if you can't. Now, pry your guests away from the cocktail shaker and shoo them into the kitchen. Everybody from this on, who is not occupied in mincing the green pepper in a chopping bowl, is busy cutting the American cheese into cubes about 1 inch square. Everybody else beats 2 fresh eggs, whites and yolks together. Drop a lump of butter into a saucepan to prevent sticking. Begin to melt the pound and 1/2 of diced cheese in the saucepan, stirring the lumps to prevent burning. When the cheese is fairly well melted, pour into it the can of tomato soup and the 2 beaten eggs. Stir into the mixture about 1/3 of a bottle of beer. Pour in also the finely chopped green pepper and continue stirring until smooth. Have hot dinner plates ready, each plate containing a large slice of hot, unbuttered toast. Place at least 1 bottle of beer, 2 if it's real, beside each plate. Holler "ready, people," and pour on each piece of toast enough of the contents of the saucepan to form a pinkish overflow of rum-tum-titty on the plate. That's all, except to shake 'em up a semi-final cocktail, and then start right back to the village in the flivver for another pound and 1/2 of cheese, another pepper and more beer to make another immediately when the first rum-tum-titty is gone. 1 calls for 2, often 3. Serve preferably in the kitchen. Serve in any room far from the kitchen if you want leg work exercise. Eat until gorged. 54. Charles Evans Hughes. Cornbread. My favorite dish is cornbread and honey. And here is a recipe for cornbread. Cups of flour, cups of cornmeal, heaping teaspoonsful of baking powder, eggs, well-beaten teaspoonful salt, tablespoonful sugar, pint of milk, tablespoonsful of melted butter. Mix the meal and flour, baking powder, salt, and sugar. Beat the eggs until they are light, then add the eggs and milk to the meal. Beat to a light, smooth consistency and add the melted butter. Bake in a shallow pan, greased, for about 25 minutes. Eat while hot and use plenty of fresh butter and honey. Editor's note: there is a white meal and a yellow. Expert appraisers of cornbread have said that the white meal is preferable. Still, the golden hue of a pan of hot cornbread is not to be passed up lightly. 55. Walter Pritchard Eaton. Mince pie. Made any other way, it's not mince pie. My favorite dish and the best food in the world is king canut pudding, but I shall not tell anybody how to make it, because that is a family secret. I am descended from Canute, and this was the pudding he ate and which made him feel so good that he went out and bade the tide to cease rising. The recipe is handed down in each generation of my tribe. It was my paternal grandmother who had it to pass on. She lived to be 99, thanks to her own wonderful cooking and a cantankerous disposition. Her mince pie was a thing to write sonnets about. It was the second best food in the world. For 10 years after I went to New York, I lived on the memory of that pie and shuddered at the horrendous messes masquerading under the same name which were offered to me. Then I moved back to New England and achieved a cook who, by the grace of God and the right bringing up, could make a pie like it. For 6 years I knew happiness again. Then we lost Kate, the incomparable. My only hope was my wife, and that was a feeble hope indeed. She was born not in the pie belt, but in New York. She had never cooked. She was an Episcopalian. I approached the next Thanksgiving breakfast with gloomy forebodings. But lo, a miracle! It was an Orthodox mince pie. It was Katie's mince pie. It was grandmother's mince pie. In short, it was mince pie. Here is the way to make it. Made any other way, it's not mince pie. The filling. Affix the grinder firmly to the edge of the table. What the palate is to the artist, so is the grinder to the creator of mincemeat. Then pass the following ingredients through the grinder, and from thence into a large kettle, and let the latter and its glorious contents simmer on the stove for the best part of a morning, stirring them frequently so that no portion shall be neglected and fail to come into close union with the soothing heat that mellows all into one fragrant whole. Take from the stove and store in stone crocks or glass jars in the dark, and keep tightly covered. When about to fashion a pie, take out as much of the meat as you desire, wet it with boiled cider and with fresh cider, too, if possible, so that it is not stiff, and bake between the crusts whose ingredients are given below. Eat hot with soft dairy cheese and coffee. The meat should be thoroughly boiled the day before the mincemeat is made, and the cider should be boiled down at home, not bought, until it is the consistency of molasses. Boil enough to last all winter and put in glass jars. Now, alas, that no liquors may be had, it is well to bottle fresh cider and put it away where it is cool, so that with luck it may still be fresh when in March you scrape the last jar for the last pie. Only use care when it is opened, or perchance it will be the ceiling rather than the pie which will be wet down. Cups cooked beef. After grinding a half cup suet, a half cups apples, cups cider, a half cup vinegar, cup molasses, cups sugar, 3/4 pound citron, a half pounds raisins, a half pound small raisins, not to be put through grinder. Salt to taste, juice and rind of 2 lemons juice, and rind of 2 oranges, tablespoon mace and nutmeg, or 2 nutmegs grated. Tablespoons each of cinnamon, cloves and allspice tablespoons, lemon extract teaspoon, almond extract cups, liquor in which beef was cooked. If you have wine or brandy, put in a cupful after taking from the fire. The crust cups pastry flour sifted with teaspoon salt. A half cup, generous, of lard mixed in with fingertips till the combination is fine and powdery. Wet with cold water, mixing with knife and cutting till you can take the dough from the bowl without sticking to it. Divide in half, pat gently on floured marble slab and roll out thin. Lift lower crust carefully, place in tin and trim off edges. Roll out from trimmings a strip 1/2 inch wide and place on top of lower crust, around edge, first wetting edge slightly with cold water. Put in filling, place upper crust on top, first wetting edge of rim slightly with cold water, press together with tines of fork and trim off overhanging of upper crust. Prick a large TM on the top crust and bake in hot oven till brown. The TM stands for teasements, to distinguish it from the pies labeled TM for taintments. 56. W.T. Benda. Polish specialties. In following my polish recipes, you will find a practical use for the geometry of your school days. If you have forgotten the axioms of Euclid, take a correspondence course before attempting ushka. It is simple when you finally master it, and marvelously good. Don't forget the line BD, everything hinges on that. Barshk with ushke. Barshk or Polish beet soup. If you are brave, put 3 large beets, peeled and quartered, into a glass jar and pour on them a quart of water, add a teaspoonful of salt and a slice of rye bread. Keep this in a warm place for about 5 days. There will form a sour red wine-like juice with a whitish mold skin on the top. Don't lose your courage. Take this skin off and pour off the juice. Then prepare a quart of beef, pork, and vegetable stock, and while it is hot, add to it all your beet juice and a bottle of cream which you previously have beaten with a teaspoonful of flour. Heat and stir it all just to boiling point, but do not let it boil, and serve with or without ushka, which are fully described in the next paragraph. Ushke. Barshk is really not complete without ushka, and as they are a very simple dish to prepare, you should never omit them. To make ushka, prepare first a fine hash of 1/2 pound of boiled pork and beef with 1 small onion, a tablespoonful of flour, salt, and pepper. Make white sauce of butter and flour and a little water. Mix this with your hash. Let it stew for a while, then add 1 raw egg and stir it madly. Now mix a dough using 1/2 quart of flour, 1 egg, 2 tablespoonfuls of water, 1/2 teaspoonful of salt, and butter of the size of a walnut. Knead this vigorously for 1/2 hour or until it is quite smooth. Roll the dough out into a sheet 1/8 inch thick and cut it into 2 1/2 inch squares. Put on each dough square a teaspoonful of your hash, fold them diagonally along the line BD fig. 1 and press the edges together, thus joining the edge OB unto the edge CB and add unto CD. You will thus obtain the right angle triangle abbed fig. 2 with the hash inside. Now curve this triangle along the hypotenuse BD until the 45-degree corner D meets the 45-degree corner B. Let these 2 corners overlap a little and press them together until they stick. The shape resulting from this operation resembles a pig's ear, as depicted in Figure 3. Now put these pig's ears or ushka into boiling water. They will sink, but that should not distress you. Leave them there until they come to the surface. Put the ushka on a platter and pour on them brown butter with crumbs and serve them as a side dish with barshk. Bureczki. Beets à la polonaise. Boil 8 little beets, skin them and chop them, not too fine. Take 1 level tablespoonful of butter and 1 tablespoonful of flour. Brown it until it is of a golden hue. Stir into this 1/2 cupful of vinegar, 2 tablespoonsful of sugar, 1/2 teaspoonful of salt, and a little pepper. Bring it to boiling, then mix this with your beets. 57. Captain Edward A. Salisbury. Sauce for spaghetti. This sauce for spaghetti is a real Italian mixture and wonderful. This is how I learned to make it in Italy. Place in a cup or bowl a 1/2 teacup full of dried mushrooms. Pour boiling water over them and just let them stand until thoroughly softened, say, about a 1/2 hour. In the meantime, cover the bottom of your frying pan or skillet with butter or olive oil. I prefer the butter. Chop 1 big onion and cook slowly, stirring frequently. In another pan or kettle, place 2 cans of tomatoes. Stew them for half an hour. Then make 3 small cakes of Hamburg steak or chopped beef and put them in to cook, with the onions. Cook thoroughly. Add at the same time the mushrooms which have been softened and chopped into fine particles. When the meat is cooked through, mash the cakes up with a fork, mixing well with onions and mushrooms. Now add the stewed tomatoes and in doing this, press them through a sieve or colander. Stir well. Place on back of stove and let steep for 1 hour after adding 2 teaspoons of Eagle chili powder, if available, or 2 teaspoons of Lee and Perrins sauce with 5 dissolved cubes of beef or chicken bouillon. To cook the spaghetti, place it, unbroken, in well-salted boiling water. Put it in end first. Boil exactly 23 minutes. Drain, hold under cold water, tap for a second or two, and drain again. Keep warm on stove until served. This cold water treatment is important. It removes all gumminess and leaves the spaghetti in perfect condition. Use the imported spaghetti if available. Eggs à la Salisbury. Here is a dish that is easy to make and delicious. I poach the desired number of eggs until they are just solid. Then I place them on hot, crisp toast, covering the eggs with beautifully done bacon. Over the lot, I pour hot cream until the eggs are floating. Salt, pepper, and paprika to taste. Try this for breakfast. Fish à la Commodore. Say you are cooking a 6-pound bass or some similar fish. Do it this way for a change. Rub the fish well with salt and pepper. Don't be afraid to rub. Then open the flesh in 3 places and insert in each opening a clove of garlic. Next, slice 6 large onions, 6 small green peppers, and 6 large tomatoes. Now take your Dutch oven or baking pan and cover the bottom with mazola oil or olive oil. Add a tablespoon of butter. When this is hot, put in your fish and cover the fish with the sliced vegetables. Salt and pepper the vegetables. Cook until the vegetables are done, or about 1 hour. Baste frequently to avoid scorching the vegetables. To the basting, add 2 teaspoons of Lee and Perrins sauce and 1/2 wine glass of cooking sherry when half done. When serving, put plenty of juice and sauce on each portion and make them come back for more. This recipe can be used for many kinds of large fish. To cook trout. Dip trout in beaten egg, salt, and pepper. Roll in flour and drop into very hot and very deep mazola oil. Remove when golden brown. The trout will be perfectly free from oil, and every bit of the delicate trout flavor will be sealed up inside. Try it. Venison steak. Venison steak is fairly poor steak at best, but there is one way to cook it that makes you forget all past experiences with venison. And remember, this is really the only way to cook it that's worth a damn. Take the venison and strip out all of the white sinews that lay between the muscles or lean parts. Strip and cut this white part all away. Then cut your venison into small strips about the thickness of a finger. Now you are on your way. Beat up an egg or 2 and beat in a bit of salt and pepper. Dip your strips of venison in the egg, then roll them in flour. Fry in butter and serve immediately. Every hunter or guide who has tried this sticks to it. It's the one way to cook venison. Goose. There is only one way for a man or anyone else to cook a goose. Listen, never pick a goose. Just pull the skin right off, every inch of it. Then take a sharp knife and follow down the breastbone on both sides. Strip the breast meat clear away from both sides. Split each side of breast into 2 thin steaks, if large goose. Dip these steaks in beaten egg, salt, and pepper. Roll in flour and fry over a medium fire. That's new to most folks for goose, and it's going to give you a new idea about geese when you try it. A mayonnaise and a salad dressing. Take yolks of 2 eggs, beat well and add slowly, drop at a time, olive oil. If your mixture is too thick, lighten with dash of lemon or vinegar. Now into a 1/2 pint of this mayonnaise, put 3 tablespoons of chili sauce, 3 tablespoons of Blue Label ketchup, 1 tablespoon of finely chopped pimento, 1 tablespoon of finely chopped blanched sweet peppers. To this add 1/2 teaspoon of salt, pepper, and Hungarian paprika to taste. Then add, slowly, tarragon vinegar to taste, say about 1 1/2 tablespoons. Serve this on shrimps, lobster, lettuce, or tomato salad. Ducks and large fowl. Ducks, such as mallard, canvasback, and redhead, should be baked. If you once learn how to bake in a Dutch oven, you have found the secret of successful camp cookery. Take a mallard, for instance. Rub it with salt and pepper, I might add here. Pick 'em dry and keep 'em dry, no water near a duck, then put an onion well up in the body cavity. Fill the remaining space with celery, wild or domestic. Get your oven, or Dutch oven, very hot before the duck goes in. Use no grease and no water, just your dry pan or oven. A big mallard will cook perfectly in 20 minutes. Do not open oven or take lid from Dutch oven after starting to cook. Serve with currant jelly. Teal, partridge and small fowl. Pick without breaking the skin. Cut open the back and break out flat for grilling or broiling. Broil bone side to the fire for 8 minutes. Souse frequently with melted butter. Turn and broil, flesh side to the fire, for 4 minutes using more butter. Salt and pepper thoroughly at time of turning. Serve with currant jelly. Beans. Get a deep pot for beans. A heavy iron one is mighty good. Take a ½ pound of salt pork and cut it into very small pieces. Fry them until brown. Clean your beans and soak them for at least 2 hours or more. Then boil the beans for 2 hours, after which add the pork and 1 can of Mexican chili sauce. If this is not available, make your own by frying with the salt pork. 4 tomatoes, 3 onions, 2 bell peppers and 1 red pepper, all chopped. Now you've got your mixture, and after it's all together put in 6 beef bouillon cubes, salt and pepper to taste. It's a good idea to have enough water in the pot so that when the beans are done a fine soup may be enjoyed before the beans are eaten. Altogether 3 to 4 hours of cooking is necessary for the best results with beans. Italian rice. First, a word about cooking rice. Buy the best head rice. Wash it thoroughly, 6 waters. Drop rice slowly into well-salted, boiling water and boil for 23 minutes. Drain off 3/4 of water and hold rice under cold water faucet for a moment. This will leave each grain firm and perfect. Drain thoroughly. Now the sauce. Place in your skillet olive oil to cover the bottom, also tablespoon of butter. Chop 1 large Spanish onion. Place it in the skillet and cook slowly. Stir often. After 10 or 15 minutes, a piece of white fish, sole preferred, about the size of your forefingers from the palm down, see? When the onions are a golden color, add 1 finely chopped clove of garlic. When fish is thoroughly cooked, mash it up with a fork and stir well. Now add 1 or 2 cans of tomatoes which have been stewing slowly for ½ an hour or more. Add them through a sieve and push with a spoon so as to get the thick part through. Mix well. Place this on the back of the stove where it will simmer for 1 hour. Add a pinch of saffron or thyme, salt and pepper to taste. This sauce can be used for only 1 meal, as it sours after a few hours. Sauce should be applied by each person as desired until it's all gone. Steak sauce. Have a large platter very, very hot, really hot. Then the minute the steak is done, put it on the platter and work fast. Over the steak sprinkle a very little bit of dry English mustard. Then a squeeze or 2 of lemon. Now several thin slices of butter, a little Worcestershire sauce, salt, pepper and paprika. Rub all this in with a broad knife. Turn steak and repeat the operation. Now tip platter on edge and quickly whip the sauce into a froth, using a fork. Serve 2 or 3 tablespoons of sauce with each piece of steak. 58. Thomas H&C. Chicken halibut. Baked and with parmesan. Boil some slices of halibut in court bouillon. Lay in baking dish a border of potato croquette, either hard or shaped with hand. Have layer of bechamel on bottom of dish, then 1 of shredded fish, another layer of bechamel and 1 more of fish, finishing with the bechamel. Sprinkle with bread crumbs and grated parmesan. Pour over a little butter and brown in the oven. With parmesan, prepare same and make solid paste by mixing together butter and parmesan cheese with pinch paprika. Work well and roll out 1/8 inch thick. Cover last layer bechamel with this and brown in hot oven. Bechamel sauce. Prepare roux of butter and flour, let cook few minutes while stirring, not allow to color. Remove to slower fire and leave it to cook 15 minutes. Then dilute gradually with half-boiled milk. Onion soup au gratin. Cut into small 1/8 inch squares 2 medium onions. Fry them in butter and add 2 dessert spoons flour and moisten with 2 quarts of broth, adding bunch of parsley garnished with chervil, bay leaf and clove and garlic. Season with a little salt, pepper and some meat extract, boil for 20 minutes. Then remove the bouquet, pour the soup over very thin slices of bread placed in a metal soup tureen in intervening layers of bread and cheese, parmesan, finishing with the Parmesan and sprinkle a little over the top of the soup. Bake in hot oven or boil 10 minutes and thicken with raw yolks of 2 eggs diluted in cream. Rice et cuite la Manhattan. Chop 2 onions, fry in butter, add a pound of rice and beat together. When very hot, add enough broth to triple quantity. Let boil and cook in slack oven for 20 minutes. Add when done 6 ounces grated Parmesan. Pour 2/3 of this into casserole, make hole in center and fill with shrimps and minced mushrooms. Around sides lay fillet of sole, pour over lean Spanish sauce, reduced with essence of mushrooms. Mix well and cover whole with remainder of rice. Put in hot oven for 15 minutes and serve. Sauce, 1 quart of stock, melt a 1/4 pound of butter, stir in same amount of flour, making clear paste, add stock, brown slowly. 59. George Ade. Scalloped oysters. If I must make a decision, I think I shall have to vote in favor of escalloped oysters. Back home we call them scalloped. The restaurant and hotel article is not the real thing. The portions are stingy and the oysters are heated just enough to render them helpless, and they lie embedded in some dry packing, evidently meant to be an article of food. Escalloped oysters, as prepared at home, came in a deep pan which had been subjected to great heat. The oysters were used with the greatest prodigality. They were cooked in cracker crumbs or cornmeal, and they were cooked until the delicious flavor of the bivalve had permeated all parts of the dish. Milk or cream and real country butter had been used unsparingly, so that the whole compound was moist and the seasoning had been well distributed, and the whole result was, in my opinion, a triumph. For some reason, the real scalloped oysters attain their perfection only when prepared by women past 30 years of age. I am not undertaking to give the recipe. Probably it is something secret, beyond the reach or comprehension of any man, but the dish itself is worthy of all the complimentary adjectives. Editor's note: here is the way to do it. First, butter the bottom and sides of a pan, deep or baking dish, then cover the bottom with those little round, old-fashioned oyster crackers, all crisp and salty. Next, place a layer of oysters, fresh or cove. If you don't know what cove oysters are, ask someone who was raised in the Middle West. Now a layer of crackers crushed, then more oysters, and so on until the pan is full. Season each layer of oysters with salt and pepper. Put little bits of butter all over the cracker layers. Now fill the pan with milk and cream to which has been added a bit of the oyster liquor. Cover the top well with crushed crackers. Put a cover on the dish or pan and slip it into the oven. Some folks add a teaspoonful of Worcestershire sauce to the milk and cream. Bake until the juices bubble up. Don't let too much of the moisture bake away. At the last minute, take the cover off the dish and brown the top. The richer the cream and butter, the better the result. The dish is even better than Mr. Ade would lead you to believe, and it can be made by an amateur male cook. That's why Mr. Ade's contribution is printed in spite of the rank heresy to which he professes. 60. Lyman Abbott. Deep apple pie. Dr. Lyman Abbott's favorite dish is a deep apple pie, which is made like the deep fruit tarts so plentiful in England. Here is a thoroughly satisfactory way to make Dr. Abbott's specialty. Line a deep pie tin with a rich crust, fill with tart, juicy apples sliced very thin. Sprinkle sugar and a little cinnamon over them. Scatter bits of butter over the apples, about a tablespoonful in all. Also sprinkle with a tablespoonful of water. Use 4 or 5 tablespoonsful of sugar. Cover with top crust and bake slowly for a half or perhaps 3/4 of an hour. For the real deep dish pie, put the apples, sugar, and butter above proportions in the individual deep dish and cover with top crust. Bake the same. The spices may be varied to taste. 61. Terry Ramsay. Lettuce à la Red Creek. In behalf of my favorite fodder, the tender leafling lettuce that's newly sprung in June, I am pleased to present a method of introducing it to the human system with a maximum effectiveness. Wilted lettuce, it is said that this dish comes to us from the Hessians. If this be treason, let us make the most of it. Having obtained the lettuce, young and tender and fresh from the patch, plucked before it is yet headstrong, toss it into a bucket of cold water to crisp it. Repairing to the kitchen, place on the hot stove a skillet and heave into it a good-sized cupful of chopped bacon. Let it fry thoroughly. Add a dessert spoonful of salt, a pinch of mustard, a couple of tablespoonsful of granulated sugar and good cider vinegar in quantity, slightly in excess of the bacon fat. Let it simmer smartly until well blended. Meanwhile, lay out the lettuce in noble heaps on the plates on which it is to be served. Chop up a handful of green onions, a bit of the tops will do no harm, and at the last moment stir them into the concoction in the skillet. While the whole is sizzling and boiling vigorously, pour the mixture over the lettuce, using a spoon to apportion the nifty bits of bacon about, and serve forthwith. By this method, one can take aboard amazing quantities of lettuce, which is most desirable in view of the fact that this gentle herb contributes strongly to the summer languor when taken in adequate quantities. 62. R. L. Rubes Goldberg. Hash. All joking aside, my favorite dish is hash. I have never actually been in the kitchen to see hash pass through the various stages of its Epicurean development, but I imagine hash is manufactured something like this. First, the father must eat a big lunch, the mother must fill herself up on cake in the afternoon, and the children must have spoiled stomachs. This condition of affairs ruins the evening meal completely, and there is plenty of meat left over for hash the next day. The cook takes the beef or veal or whatever it is and throws it into the electric fan. The flying bits of meat are caught on ping-pong rackets by experts and knocked back into a pot that contains a large quantity of mashed potatoes. Then the fire is lighted and the cook can go out to an afternoon movie. The beauty of hash is that, no matter how it tastes, you think it is all right. There is no standard flavor for hash. Hash is fundamentally accidental, so it has no traditions to live up to. 63. Channing Pollock. Cornbread. When I was young and sometimes went camping, my favorite dish was cornbread. In those days, we always began proceedings by building a mud oven. Now I believe portable ovens are convenient and cheap. In any event, following is my recipe. Cups of flour, cups of cornmeal, heaping teaspoonsful of baking powder, eggs, well-beaten teaspoonful of salt, tablespoonful of granulated sugar, generous pint of milk, tablespoonsful of melted Crisco or lard. Do not scald the cornmeal. Mix the meal with flour, baking powder, salt, and sugar. Beat the eggs until they are light. Add the milk and eggs to the other ingredients. Beat the whole until it is smooth and light, about 1 minute. Finally, adding the melted Crisco or lard, pack into shallow, greased pan and bake in a hot oven for 25 minutes. 64. Hussein Khan Ali. Minister to the United States from Persia. Karen Palo. Necessary materials. 1 pound of rice, Carolina rice is most suitable, 1 spring chicken, the peel of 4 oranges, 4 ounces of sugar, half a pound of salt, 2 grams of Spanish saffron, 2 ounces of almonds, half a pound of butter. Method of cooking the rice. If the dish is required for a luncheon at 1 o'clock, it will be necessary, the night before, to rinse the rice 3 times in water, rubbing it each time with the palms of the hands. Change the water each time. Next, soak the rice in tepid water, letting the water stand 3 inches over the rice. Pour the half pound of salt on the rice and let it stand until 11 a.m. of the next day. Into a 2-gallon cauldron, pour 6 quarts of water and let it boil. As soon as it boils, pour out slowly, and with care, the water in which the rice has been soaking since the night before. Empty the rice into the boiling water. Cover the cauldron and increase the heat. As soon as the cauldron containing the rice begins to boil, remove the cover and stir the rice gently with a flat spoon. Then replace the lid and let the contents of the cauldron boil again. Repeat the stirring process 3 times. Next, drain the rice in a sieve, shaking it to remove all adherents of salt and starch. Now melt 1/4 pound of butter in a large cup of water. Pour half of the melted butter into a 1-gallon cauldron and gently empty the rice into the cauldron in such a way that it will spread uniformly without sticking together in rice balls. Place the cauldron in a hot oven. Close the oven and after 5 or 6 minutes see if the cauldron is hot. If it is, bring it out gently and pour the remainder of the melted butter over the rice and replace in the oven. Now reduce the heat until the cauldron gives a hollow sound when rapped with the fingers. This will indicate that the rice is sufficiently cooked. Preparation of the almonds. Boil the almonds for a few minutes until the skins fall off and the almonds become white. Cut the almonds into 4 quarters perpendicularly. Preparation of the orange peel. Remove the white part of the peel to such an extent that both sides of the peel are of the same color. When this has been done, cut the peel into long, thin strings. These should be boiled in 2 waters so as to remove all bitterness. Then strain. Combining the almonds and the orange peel, mix the almonds and the orange peel and boil them in a syrup of sugar for 10 minutes. Strain and keep in a warm place until needed. Cooking the chicken, begin boiling the chicken very slowly at 8 o'clock in the morning. Boil to such a point that the skin and bones detach themselves from the flesh. Preparation of the saffron. Warm the saffron to remove all dampness and pound it to a powder in a mortar, after which dissolve it in 3 tablespoonsful of cold water. Dishing the palo, 1/2 of the rice should be taken from the cauldron and mixed in a bowl with the orange peel and almonds. Over this sprinkle 3 tablespoonsful of saffron water to color well. Now pour over it about 2 tablespoonsful of melted butter. Next, remove the remainder of the rice from the cauldron and dish it up ready for the table. Place the chicken, from which the skin and bones have been removed, on top of the rice. Crown the whole with the rice, which has already been mixed with the almonds and orange peel and colored with the saffron. This will make a delightful and pleasantly flavored dish, Kairan palo, which means sweet palo. 65. William J. Bryan. French fried onions. Onions are on my permitted list of foods, and they are prepared for the table in many ways. The best way that I know of has been given the name of French fried onions. I first ate onions in this form at the famous Grove Park in Asheville, North Carolina, and have since introduced the dish on dining cars and into many private homes. Take a Bermuda onion, any other large onion would do, cut it into slices through the rings so that each slice will be made up of a large number of whole rings. Then break the slices up into separate rings, drop these into a thin batter, and fry them as you fry French fried potatoes. Each ring looks like a little donut. I find that the dish is universally praised. May I add a word in regard to radishes, of which I am very fond. The long white icicle radish is, in my judgment, the best variety, and I have found that butter added to the salt makes the radish a little more palatable. 66. Will Irwin. Ham and eggs. Take a frying pan and some ham. Cook the ham in its own fat in the frying pan. Cook until the ham is well dappled with golden brown or until it is cooked enough. Then break some eggs. Take out the ham and put it on a hot platter, then put in the eggs. Baste them a bit with the hot ham fat. Put a cover on the pan and let the eggs cook in the hot pan with no fire. A minute or 2 will do, then serve the eggs with the ham and, oh boy. For the very best results, use the best ham you can get and plenty of day-old eggs. 67. Douglas Fairbanks. Bread tart cup, fresh bread crumbs cup, sugar cup, chopped nut meats a half teaspoons, baking powder, eggs, tablespoons, grape juice, lemon. Filling egg a half cup, chopped walnut meats a half cup, sugar a half cup, lemon. Soak bread crumbs with grape juice and the strained lemon juice. Beat egg yolks and sugar together until light, then add nut meats, baking powder, bread crumbs, and the beaten whites of the eggs. Divide into buttered and floured layer tins and bake in a moderate oven for 20 minutes. Put together with filling. Beat up egg, add sugar, lemon juice, and walnuts. This tart may be covered with frosting if liked. 68. Julian Street. Sole à la marguerie and duck with oranges. I have 2 favorite dishes, both being examples of the French cuisine at its highest. One is sole à la marguerie, which can be made with flounder, also, and was originated by old Monsieur Marguerie at his famous restaurant in Paris. It has a sauce which has a wine base and which contains shrimps and small oysters. Sole à la marguerie. Lay your sole in a buttered platter, add about a glassful of white wine, season and poach. Let boil for about 15 minutes and then take the juice out. Mix with it a yolk of a raw egg, about 2 ounces of sweet butter. Beat slowly so as to get it thick, something like a hollandaise. Add a few shrimps, oysters, mussels, and a few heads of mushrooms. Cook the sole with it. Glaze in a salaman 2 or 3 minutes and serve. Another is duck cooked with oranges. I know how to ask for it at the St. Regis and the Brevoort, but am not sure of the spelling. It sounds like duck bigored. They do it well at the Brevoort. If potatoes are served with either of these dishes, they should be potatoes gaufrettes on a separate plate. Duck bigored. To roast, select a young and very tender duck, prepare and truss it for roasting. It should be roasted on the spit or in the oven for 15 to 25 minutes, according to its size and the heat of the fire. A domestic duck ought to be served quite rare and should be killed without bleeding. Dish it after untrussing and pour over it a little of its gravy. Sauce bigarade, peel an orange without touching the white parts, cut the peel up into small, fine julienne. Plunge it into boiling water and cook until it is tender. Drain and enclose it in a covered saucepan with 4 gills of espagnole or brown sauce. Just when ready to serve, finish the sauce with a dash of cayenne pepper, meat glaze, the orange juice and the juice of a lemon, strain through a tamise, adding 2 ounces of fine butter. 69. SS McClure. Omelette and pie. I can give you a tip on how to prepare, in the very best fashion, 2 articles of food. The first is omelette. The frying pan should be held at a slant, with the lower part immediately over a moderate heat, and continually the volume of eggs that becomes cooked should be scraped back and the liquid part allowed to flow over the pan, thus emptied. And then when the omelette is, I should say, about 2/3 cooked, it should be removed from the fire and dished. It is impossible to make an omelette of the utmost symmetry and firmness and have it good at the same time. If it is stiff enough to maintain a certain symmetry, then it is too stiff to be good. I have made an omelette in this fashion, containing as many as 18 eggs. I learned how to make omelette from Madame Poulard of Mont Saint-Michel in Normandy, one of the most famous omelette makers in Europe. I am also particularly successful in making pies. On one occasion, I made pies for 185 officers on the troop ship Leviathan. To make pies, one must have the best quality of butter and the best quality of flour. Use a pound of butter to every 2 pounds of flour. The butter must be rather firm and must be mixed with the flour with your hands. Then when you have a sort of a mass of dough on the table, make a little hollow in the middle, pour in a little cold water, mix it to such a consistency that it can be made into a roll perhaps as thick as your wrist. It will require about 2 inches to be rolled out thin for the crusts. Dust a little flour in the dish that it is to be baked in and put into the oven at such a temperature as would require 1/2 an hour to bake. There's a considerable secret in the choice of fruits. The top crust should have little apertures in it so as to permit the steam to escape. It is easier to make perfect pies than any other dish. 70. Basil King. Lobster écute la king. Boil medium-sized lobsters. Let grow cold and remove meat. Put large piece of butter and 1 1/2 tablespoons of flour into double boiler. Stir until creamy. Add 1 pint of milk and cook about 5 minutes. Add lobster cut in small pieces and cook about 15 minutes. Just before serving, add 3 tablespoons cream and 1/2 tumbler sherry or brandy. Note, unless brandy or sherry can be added, it is useless to attempt this dish. 71. Johnny Morose. Spaghetti for the gang. Many a time as a very small boy I watched my distinguished Piedmontese grandfather grandly direct the cook. This is the way our spaghetti sauce was prepared. Buy about 3 or 4 pounds of solid meat from the round, cut thick. Ask for the eye of the beef. It is inexpensive. Cut little pockets in it and insert bits of fat bacon in some. In others stuff sage, thyme, parsley, and bay leaf with salt and pepper to taste. Sometimes I spread thinly with mustard, the prepared sort, covering the top. A clove of garlic tucked in with the seasoning goes well if you have Wop ancestry. Pale people use onions, but surely one or the other. Grease well a deep iron skillet with iron top, the pot roast utensil. When the gravy begins to drip, add a little water, but not much. The steam makes the meat tender and brings out all the flavors in the little pockets. Baste from time to time just to get the aroma of the simmering mess and sharpen your appetite. Take a little wire and jab it in the roast after about 1 hour and 20 minutes and you'll find out whether it is tender and juicy enough. Put the big pot on and get your water boiling fast. Add a good-sized kitchen spoon of salt. Better salt the water to taste. Throw in a pound of Italian-made spaghetti, the farina spaghetti. It requires a certain kind of wheat to make good macaroni. Boil for 20 minutes, drain off water. To the rich gravy you will find the roast swimming and add a small can of tomato paste, stirring in slowly. As this is poured over the spaghetti, add grated Roman cheese. You will get it all properly dressed by using 2 forks, lifting and dropping the strands. Serve piping hot with an automatic revolver at hand so that the man who cuts his can be disposed of promptly. Some twine the spaghetti about the fork. Others just lead a mass of it to the face and bite off what they want at that particular mastication. A good salad and Italian bread, to be secured at any small dealer's where the boss sings Santa Lucia in a thin, high voice as he slices the salami, goes well with the roast. This layout will last an old bachelor or a deserted husband 2 or 3 days. It's grand when it's warmed up in a boiler. 72. FX Leyendecker. Veau sauté marengo. During my Paris days, school days, I became very fond of 2 dishes, and they still remain my favorites. Number 1, veau sauté marengo. Nothing Epicurean about this, but real tasty. A ragout of veal which must be served in a brown pot. It is flavored with tiny onions and mushrooms, olives, and a delicious sauce. I have never found it quite so well prepared as in Paris. Fry some small pieces of veal in oil, add 1 chopped onion, 1 head of crushed garlic, and when it is well browned, strain it, add 1 glass of white wine and reduce. Moisten it with 1 quart of brown sauce. Add 2 pounds fresh tomatoes and some fine herbs. Cook slowly for an hour and a half. Put the meat in another pan, add few small onions cooked in butter, some small mushrooms already cooked. Dress and serve on toast fried in butter. Number 2, vol au vent financière, a pastry form filled with mushrooms, cubes of chicken, something else, and a good sauce. This also seems not quite the same outside of Paris. Vol au vent financière. Put 4 ounces of butter in a saucepan, add 4 ounces of cooked sweetbread cut in 3/16-inch squares, small bits of the white of chicken, some truffles, olives, mushrooms, kidney, and coxcombs. Moisten with 1 pint of Madeira sauce, let boil and despumate. When the sauce is done, strain it through a tamise, fill your pastry crust, and serve. Editor's note: the recipes are French, and properly prepared and served, they will prove the real thing in Keokuk as well as in the Cartier Latin. 73. Eddie Cantor. Boiled beef and horseradish sauce. I love boiled beef and horseradish sauce. I love it better than any other dish in the world. Anybody knows how to boil beef, and a good horseradish sauce is made in this fashion. Melt a good-sized lump of the best butter, almost as big as an egg is good-sized. Add to this, first removing from the fire, about 2 tablespoonsful of flour. Stir the flour and butter together until the mixture is absolutely smooth, and then add cold milk, a trifle more than a half pint, a shade less than a pint. Put over a slow fire in a saucepan or, for safety's sake, a double boiler. Cook slowly until the sauce is of the desired consistency, and then add your horseradish. If you like the sauce very hot, add a lot of horseradish. If you like it moderate, a little horseradish. The best way is to begin with a teaspoonful and keep adding and tasting until it's okay. Salt and pepper to taste, of course. And if you like it, a dash of celery salt. 74. Frazier Hunt. Stuffed celery. I like food. I like almost any kind of food. I've eaten all varieties in great cities and in out-of-the-way corners of the world, and I've never found anything that I couldn't eat if I were hungry enough. But best of all, I think that I like stuffed celery. It's easy to fix, and it's slightly out of the ordinary, and it's possible to consume a lot of it without being looked down upon by those who are dining with you, because everybody eats a lot of stuffed celery. To a half pound of Roquefort cheese, add 1/4 pound of butter. Cream them together until they are as smooth as it is possible to make any mixture containing Roquefort cheese. Then add a dessert spoonful, or a tablespoonful if you like, of Worcestershire sauce. A little salt, and some paprika, enough to slightly color the mixture. And then take stalks of celery, very white and crisp and fresh, and stuff the hollow side until it bulges with the Roquefort mixture. And serve with your dinner, or after dinner, or with the salad, or all alone. It doesn't matter when or where you place it on the menu, for it's apt to be the dominant note. 75. William. Slavin's McNutt. Orange compote. Orange compote is my favorite dish. After my 4th, I begin to forget that I'm a human being. After my 6th, I can feel myself drifting into a blissfully comatose state, with only strength enough left to call for a 7th. Orange compote, at its best, may be obtained in any small Turkish or Armenian restaurant where the coffee is good and the dishes aren't too offensively clean. When made at home, it is never quite the same. I don't know why. This, however, is the best working substitute that I am able to concoct. Take as many oranges as your system is capable of absorbing and peel them, removing all of the thin white inside skin and all of the film-like tissue that divides an orange into sections. I forgot to mention that the orange should be large, luscious, juicy, and free of seeds. Place the oranges in individual serving dishes and pour over them this sauce, while hot. For about 6 oranges, you will need 1 middle-sized jar of orange marmalade and 1 small can of Hawaiian pineapple. Put the marmalade, the pineapple, cut into small cubes, and the pineapple juice into a double boiler and cook briskly until the liquid begins to thicken. Then pour it over the uncooked oranges and allow them, each in its individual dish, to stand in the icebox until dessert time. Just before serving, sprinkle with a few pine nuts or salted almonds. Pine nuts are best. 76. Stephen Vincent Bennett. Zitelli's macaroni stew. Take 1/2 pound of real Italian macaroni, boil it in plenty of water, slightly salted, till soft, say, about 20 minutes. Take 1 quart of tomatoes, 1/2 pint of water, and 2 ounces of fat bacon cut into small pieces. Now 1 onion and a small bunch of parsley. Boil all these together, apart from the macaroni, for half an hour, then pass the mixture through a colander. Add 1 tablespoonful of butter and season with salt and pepper to taste. Put it on the fire again and let it boil for 5 minutes. Let the macaroni and the sauce both be very hot. In a tureen, place a layer of the macaroni covered with grated cheese, then cover with a ladleful of the sauce and repeat the layers until the entire amount is served. It should be dished in deep soup plates for individual servings. 77. James R. Quirk. Tomato wiggle. To 1 pound of diced American cheese, add 1 can of Campbell's tomato soup. Heat over a slow fire until a thick, smooth mass has been obtained. And then add 1 beaten egg and follow it quickly with a cup of cream or very rich milk. Stir in a dessertspoonful of Worcestershire sauce and enough salt to give the proper kick. Serve on soda crackers that have been heated, large soda crackers. The name, that's just to make it difficult. 78. Charles W. Eliot. A favorite menu. I can hardly say that I have a favorite dish, but a favorite menu for luncheon or dinner is clam soup, corned beef hash, and baked Indian pudding. Note, if you want to try Dr. Eliot's menu, why not use Rex Beach's clam specialty? Then for the corned beef hash, get plenty of fine lean corned beef and cut it into 1/8 inch bits. Chop 1 small onion into very fine particles. Take cold boiled potatoes, fairly firm, and cut or chop. Prepare some drawn butter and add a few drops of Worcestershire sauce, salt, and pepper. Now mix the meat, potatoes, onion, and drawn butter. Mold and pat into small, flat, elliptical loaves, individual servings, and fry in a hot, lightly buttered pan. Turn frequently until well browned on both sides. Serve sprinkled with minced parsley. Top off with this baked Indian pudding. You must have 1 quart of milk, 3 eggs, a half cup of the finest seeded raisins, 1 teaspoonful of salt, 2 heaping tablespoonsful of cornmeal, 4 heaping tablespoonsful of sugar, 1 heaping tablespoonful of butter. Boil the milk in a double boiler and sprinkle in the cornmeal, stirring all the time. Cook 12 minutes. Beat the eggs, adding the salt, sugar, and a half teaspoonful of ground ginger. Add this mixture with the butter to milk and meal, then add the raisins and stir until perfectly mixed. Remove from the double boiler and bake for 1 hour. You will agree with Dr. Eliot. 79. H.S. Cumming. Surgeon General, USPHS. Virginia egg bread. I am particularly fond of this dish. It is, I think, my favorite, and I pass along the recipe with the hope that others will find it as satisfying and delicious as do those who already list it among their favorites. Cup water ground cornmeal, white, a half cup's boiling water cup sweet milk, or 4 eggs teaspoonful salt tablespoonsful butter teaspoonsful sugar. Stir boiling water into the sifted meal, add sweet milk. When cool, break eggs into the mixture and beat thoroughly, add salt, sugar, and butter melted. Bake in well-buttered baking dish in hot oven. 80. Joseph Santley. Cocoa cream cake. I will admit that it sounds a good deal like pink sponge cake to announce a preference for anything so epicureanly flippant as cocoa cream cake. But it is the one dish that I prefer above any other, and in justice to truth and accuracy, I repeat, my favorite is cocoa cream cake. And my own dear mother will have to stand the responsibility for whatever shame comes to me by openly declaring it. You see, she makes it. And it was from her I learned the secret of its concoction. Here is the recipe. 4 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of cocoa, a teaspoonful of vanilla, and a teaspoonful of baking powder. Cream yolks of eggs and sugar well, add the vanilla. Sift the cocoa and baking powder well, and add to the eggs and sugar. Last of all, stir in the whites of the eggs, beaten. Bake in 2 layers for about 10 minutes. When cold, whip a pint of thick cream with a teaspoonful of vanilla and sugar to taste, placing half between the layers and half on top. Oh boy. 81. A. Hamilton Gibbs. Squab in casserole. In a casserole, put generous layer of sliced onion sauté, 2 sliced tomatoes sauté, 2 cups of mushrooms, 2 cups of potato balls, and a little fresh parsley also sauté. All the vegetables should be fried in butter. On top place, breast up, a squab or a 1-pound chicken, one for each person. On each breast place a slice of crisp fried bacon. Over all pour some rich, well-seasoned brown sauce, filling the casserole up with the chicken breasts, 3/4 full, preferably with a cup of sherry added last, if your cellar will still produce it. Place the casserole in a hot oven, uncovered. When the breasts are brown, cool oven to a moderate heat, cover the casserole and cook for 2 hours. Then remove the casserole and serve from dish. The result is an Epicurean masterpiece. 82. Richard Barthelmess. Spiced grapes. This dish is always reminiscent to me of low New England farmhouses with green blinds. You know the kind, set far back from the road, among tall trees with hollyhocks and rose geraniums and old-fashioned pinks in the garden. When I see such a house, and I can sometimes by closing my eyes, I can always smell the pungent scent of spiced grapes cooking away on an immaculate kitchen range. This is the rule for making spiced grapes, a rule that most New England families seem to follow. To 7 pounds of grapes, there should be added these materials: 3 pounds of granulated sugar, 1 cup of vinegar, 2 tablespoonsful of ground cinnamon, and 1 tablespoonful of ground cloves. Weigh the grapes, wash, and pulp them. Cook the pulp until the seeds are loosened, then press the mass through a sieve. Cook the skins just as long as you cook the pulps. Put them on the same stove, but in separate kettles. Add the strained pulps to the skins, then vinegar, sugar, and spices, and cook until the mixture thickens. This, when served with cold meat, changes a commonplace supper of leftovers into a feast. 83. Don Juan. Guangos. Ambassador to the United States from Spain. Eggplant au gratin. Peel the eggplant. Whiten it in salty water and dry. Fry in butter, with salt sprinkled on each piece. Place in a dish with grated cheese, tomato sauce, and mushrooms, which have been cut into small pieces and put thickly between the layers of eggplant. Bake until well cooked in a moderate oven. 84. Samuel G. Bly. Tripe et acute la mode de con, et acute la Roy Carruthers. Only an artist should attempt to make tripe à la mode de con because only an artist can make it. It requires the soul of a poet, the spirit of a painter, and the exaltation of a violin virtuoso in the maker as a prerequisite for its concoction. Of course, it may be eaten by the commonalty, but it is too good for them. It really is a dish for the intelligentsia. There are not more than a dozen people in the United States who have the temperament and the touch required. One of these is Roy Carruthers, and herewith, as my favorite recipe, I set down the complicated but necessary procedure for producing this work of art. Take 4 pounds of fresh honeycomb tripe and 1 pound of fresh Maniples tripe, the thickest part, and wash thoroughly in many changes of fresh water. Drain well and scrape to have all absolutely clean. Take 2 calf's feet and carefully bone each foot and cut into pieces 2 inches square. Have a large earthen pot, scrupulously clean, and line sides and bottom of this pot with very thin slices of larding pork. Place tripe and cut up feet in pot. Add 2 small red carrots, 2 white onions with 2 cloves stuck in each and half of a sound seeded pepper. Make a bouquet of 2 leeks, 2 branches of celery, 3 branches of parsley, and a sprig of thyme, marjoram, a blade of mace, and a bay leaf, only one. Put this bouquet in the pot and pour in a half pint of white wine, a pint of cider, and a quart of consomme or white broth. Season with a full teaspoon of salt and half a spoon of black pepper. Now make a stiff dough with a pound of white flour and 2 gills of water. Roll out on a table until you have enough to cover the pot, and cover closely, making sure there can be no evaporation. Place pot in a very slow oven and cook for 15 hours. Then lift up the cover, skim off the fat, and remove the bouquet of herbs and the vegetables. Chop together 6 shallots or scallions if shallots are not procurable, the red part of a carrot, a bean of sound garlic, 2 ounces of raw ham, and an ounce of raw lean pork. Place this hash in a saucepan with a tablespoon of melted butter. Cook gently on the fire for 5 minutes, stirring lightly, and then pour in half a gill of cognac and let it reduce briskly until it is nearly dry. Put the contents of the pot on the saucepan, add a gill of pure tomato juice, mix lightly with a wooden spoon, and cook slowly for 45 minutes. Then dress the tripe on a deep hot dish. Sprinkle a little freshly chopped parsley over, and send to table very hot with 12 slices of toasted French bread. That is real tripe à la mode de Caen. All others are imitations. 85. Charles H. Taylor. Clam chowder. Try out salt pork. Take out the scraps. Cut up onions and fry them in the pork fat until they are a golden brown. Open clams and save all the clam water. Most chefs steam the clams first because they are so much easier to handle, but if you want the real flavor, you want to shell the clams, wash the meat over carefully and let the clam water settle and dip it out instead of pouring it into your kettle so as to leave out the sand. Add to the onions enough hot water to cover them, put in clam water and the bellies of the clams. Cook until the bellies of the clams have practically disappeared, about 2 hours. Then add whatever more hot water is necessary, add the rest of your clam meat, after having first cut off the black end of the head, and run the meat through the coarsest cutting disc of your meat grinder. Cook until clams are very nearly done, and then add your sliced white potato. Cook again until the potatoes are done. Then add whatever milk you put in and let it come to a boil. Put into the chowder what we call Boston cracker. They are shaped like a water cracker, only they are soft. Split them in halves. These will soften up immediately, and you can then serve your chowder. Do not use any flour for thickening. If the chowder is prepared and the bellies of the clams cooked as above, this will make the broth thicken up. 86. Cyrus H.K. Curtis. Baked beans. My favorite dish. To prepare Mr. Curtis. Favorite food is no difficult task, and any number of methods original and otherwise may be followed. For the best results, have a large covered bean pot, and the rest is easy. Select fine white or navy beans. Wash them thoroughly and let them soak in clear water for several hours. Most folks soak them all night. Place the beans in the pot with several pieces of salt pork, with fat, cover with water slightly salted. Put the lid on the pot and bake in a moderate oven until done. That's plain baked beans. Chili sauce or tomato catsup or chopped tomatoes may be added to taste. Look at the beans occasionally, and add water if they seem too dry or in danger of burning. Another method which produces wonderful results is to omit the pork and tomato preparations and add generous lumps of butter and brown sugar. Better still, add genuine sorghum molasses. When you do it, this way be extra careful to see that just enough water is added in small quantities to prevent burning. Always remove from the oven while the beans are still whole. If baked too long, they will break up. The time necessary for baking will vary according to the heat of the oven and the length of time the beans were soaked. 87. Frederick Arnold Kummer. Spaghetti diabolique. Brown 1½ pounds top plate of beef in half a cup of boiling olive oil for 1 hour, turning frequently. Mince the shells of 4 sweet peppers, 1 bunch of celery, 1 bunch of parsley, 3 large onions, 2 sections of clove garlic, add a saltspoonful of ground thyme, a teaspoonful of salt, 1 of black pepper and red pepper to taste. Add 1 quart of tomatoes, pour over the beef, cook for an hour, add a pint of water and cook slowly for 2 hours more. To make the spaghetti, measure a quart of flour, break in yolks of 3 eggs, add 3 half eggshells full of ice water, work to the proper consistency, roll and cut into thin strips. When dry, cook in boiling salted water for 20 minutes. Place spaghetti in the center of a dish, pour the sauce and shredded meat around it, and serve. Editor's note: from the several favorite dishes of spaghetti mentioned in this volume, it would seem that there is a decided male preference for this particular article of diet. Mr. Cummer goes the limit and tells how to make the spaghetti itself. 88. Albert D. Lasker. Chicken paprika. Say a 5-pound chicken. Do it this way and see how you like it. Slice 4 small onions. Put 1/6 pound of butter into pan, add onions and let cook over fire until soft and a light brown in color. Add 2 teaspoonsful of paprika and put in the chicken piece by piece, fitting into kettle. Add 1/4 tablespoonsful of salt, cover tightly and cook until soft, 2 hours or more. Remove the chicken, and into the gravy add 1/4 tablespoonsful of canned tomatoes. Shake in a tablespoonful of flour and stir well. Add 3/4 pint of sour cream and stir well over the fire. Strain over the chicken, heat again and serve. 89. Henry V. N. Dyke. Fish chowder. I will say that I like to cook, and if I have good luck, to eat, a dish for which the following is the recipe. First, catch your fish with hook and line: salmon, trout or bass, cod, haddock, or bluefish. Then obtain a good-sized kettle and put into it first a layer of sliced potatoes, then a fine sprinkling of fine sliced onion, then a layer of fat pork cut into small cubes, then a layer of fish, skinned and sliced, then a layer of crackers or thin pilot biscuit. Sprinkle salt and pepper on each layer according to taste. Repeat the layers from 3 to 5 times according to the size of your kettle. Fill the pot moderately full with water and put it on the fire to cook slowly. If the water gets low, replenish it. You can tell when the dish is done by testing the potatoes or the fish with a fork. As a rule, it should take about an hour to cook. Just before the end, put in 2 or 3 cupfuls of milk. If your taste is slightly vitiated by contact with the world, you may add a double spoonful of some spicy sauce. But for my part, one like a chowder best au natural. 90. Macklin Arbuckle. Southern gumbo a acute La County chairman. A year-old fowl, jointed as you would for frying. Soup kettle ready on the back of the stove with cold water. Then the frying pan. About 1/2 dozen thin slices of the best bacon. Reserve this for the kettle later. Bacon fat in the frying pan, fry the chicken very brown. As soon as each piece of chicken is brown, place it in the kettle, then put the kettle over the fire. Let it boil. Add 6 small onions or 3 large ones, sliced and fried in the bacon grease. Onions fried golden brown. Then to the onions, add a can of tomatoes or the equivalent of sliced tomatoes. Keep stirring from the bottom to prevent burning. All must cook until it has thickened. While cooking, add chili peppers cut fine, green peppers the same, also okra. Add 1 or 2 large bay leaves and season to taste with salt and pepper. Onions, tomatoes, and peppers should be added to the chicken in the kettle when they have cooked sufficiently. If fresh okra is not available, use the best canned kind. About 10 minutes before the gumbo is ready, add 1 can of golden bantam corn. To serve with the gumbo, have a dish of perfectly cooked rice. You may use the same general formula for crab or oyster gumbo. A combination salad is about the only thing worth serving with gumbo, although you might wash it down with a bottle of pre-war imported claret. Help. 91. John Tainter Foot. Morel sauté. There is a dish, a gastronomical ecstasy, the faintest conception of which is magnificently beyond the pen. The fork is the one utensil that can convey to the uninitiated the unique, the utterly sublime flavor of morel sauté. A morel is, in the vernacular of the countryside, a sponge mushroom. It is to be found in ancient, unplowed orchards during the pastel phase of spring, when apple trees blossom and bees zoom and bumble and hum in a languid shower of pink and white petals. Close to a girthy apple tree, scabrous with age, pockmarked by the bills of countless woodpeckers, the morels now and then, alas, it is only now and then, poke up through the cold, damp, chocolate-colored earth and flourish shyly for a fortnight or so. A full day's tramping through orchard after orchard may win perhaps 24 of these tiny sponges that have absorbed the very essence of spring. They are almost the exact color of the matted, winter-killed grass in which they nestle to defy all but the most careful searching. A full day's work for each 24, but never was a day's wage more ample, more exquisitely satisfying. Take the hard-won double dozen home. Give them in reverent silence to the cook. She knows, if by the grace of God she was with you so long ago as the previous spring, just what to do. She will plop the morels into well-salted water, there to remain the night through. In the morning she will place them in a colander to drain for half an hour. She will then transfer them to a frying pan of hot butter, where they will sputter and sizzle for 20 minutes. During that 20 minutes, there will waft into the living room, where you are making a pitiful pretense of reading the morning paper, an odor straight from the kitchens of heaven. You throw down the newspaper and burst with glaring eyes into the dining room. You seat yourself at the table and fiddle wildly with knife and fork and spoon. Years later, the waitress appears with a dish and then, I faint, I swoon, I cannot go on. 92. Morris Francis Egan. A diplomatist's receipt for Welsh rabbit. I have no hesitation in saying that my recipe for Welsh rabbit is the best yet invented. It has an international reputation. It has been eaten with gusto by Russians, Turks, and some Englishmen who, strange to say, are distinguished gourmets. There have been Frenchmen who were too reserved, perhaps, in their praise of it, but then it must be remembered that Welsh rabbit is not sympathetic with the Gallic temperament. The French prefer timbles de fromage. Put a large chafing dish over the hot water pan in which the water must be boiling. Never let the temperature of the heat change for a moment, therefore a big alcohol lamp is preferable. Grate ordinary cheese or cut it into the shape of dice. Drop in a lump of butter of the size of an English walnut. Pour into the pan a pint of near beer or near Budweiser. Slightly heat it. In the old days, musty ale was everything. Today, the symbol of beer is almost sufficient. Drop in a half teaspoonful of strong red pepper and then a tablespoonful of paprika, paprika being merely a flavor and not a condiment. Keep the beer hot, then drop 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, a tablespoon of catsup, and a half teaspoon of mustard. When this mixture boils, put in the cheese and stir in one direction until the mixture assumes the consistency of cream. Use the thick plates sold in the department stores especially for Welsh rabbit. Have them heated so that the cheese will sizzle when it touches them. Have ready a sufficient number of pieces of toasted bread, the crust carefully cut off. When the cheese is sufficiently plastic, dip a round of toast into it, let it remain for a second, transfer it to the hot plate, and at once ladle the mixture in the pan over the toast with neatness and dispatch, and you will have an unprecedented success, if no conversation is permitted until the rabbit is eaten. The sound of a human voice lowers its temperature. Coffee or tea must never be partaken of until the morsels are disposed of. During the eating process, Budweiser is a substitute for the real thing, which was musty ale or the dog's head variety. 93. Livingston Farrand. Sausage and griddle cakes. I think I would say that my favorite dish is sausage and griddle cakes for breakfast on a cold winter morning. I would call attention to the fact that the sausages should be in cake form and not in skins, and that the griddle cakes should be of wheat flour. I am sure there are millions of Americans who agree with me. Editor's note: here is the best of a dozen tried recipes for the cakes. To 1 cup of Hecker S, or any excellent self-raising flour, not pancake. Add a full half cup of milk and a beaten egg mixed together. A little cream will help at this point, but it isn't absolutely necessary. Melt now a lump of butter the size of a good big walnut and stir it into the mixture. Beat for a moment, and if the consistency does not seem just right, add a shade more of milk or flour. The mixture or batter should be about as thick as molasses in the winter time. For the very perfection in results, bake the cakes on a soapstone griddle and serve with the best maple syrup obtainable. This recipe can be safely doubled any number of times and then some. As above, it serves 2 unless more are desired, in which case it is easy to duplicate in no time. 94. F. Ziegfeld, Jr. Little chicken tarts. Here is a dish that I am very fond of, and it is really very easy to prepare. The tart molds may be purchased already made, which simplifies things somewhat if you do not want to bother with the dough. But in case you cannot get them, here is the whole process, and I can vouch for the results. Cups of chopped chicken, cooked, or 1 large can chicken a la king, a half cup evaporated milk, eggs, onion cups, sifted flour, a half cup shortening, a half cup water, teaspoonful salt, pepper, parsley, ice water. Mix salt and flour, cut in the chilled shortening with 2 knives until the mixture is as fine as meal. With a broad-bladed knife, stir in ice water slowly until dough clings around knife in a ball, leaving sides of bowl perfectly clean. Toss dough on floured breadboard. Flour the rolling pin and roll it out very thin. Keep the pin well floured. Rub the outside of patty pans or jelly molds with a little shortening and lay dough over these smoothly, bringing it well over the edge. Bake upside down for about 10 minutes in a hot oven. If chicken a la king is used for a filling, it will not require any special preparation, but if you really want to cook and you use the cold chicken, proceed as follows. Cut the chicken in small pieces but do not mince. Mince onion and cook until slightly brown in a little butter. Stir in a tablespoonful of flour, add milk and water. When smooth, add chicken and season to taste. When bubbling, take from the fire and stir in the slightly beaten eggs. Let cool, then fill the pastry shells. The remainder of the pastry dough should have been kept in the icebox. Get it out. Roll it thin as before. Cut in round pieces to cover the tops of the tarts. Wet the edges of the tarts with cold water. Press on the covers, bringing the edges well down as they shrink a bit in baking. Slit the tops before putting on. Press the edges with tines of fork. Garnish with parsley. 95. Harold Lloyd. Lemon layer cake. This, when properly gummy, is as good for a comedian to throw as a custard pie. Only it's too good for that sort of treatment, which sounds rather like an Irish bull. The layer cake doesn't interest me especially. After all, it's only an excuse for the frosting. Any sort of layer cake recipe will answer, and according to the best cook I know, my grandmother, there are 100 such recipes. It's the filling that I find important. Here is the rule, and it sounds too simple to be true. Take 1 beaten egg, 1 cup of sugar, the juice and grated rind of 1 lemon. Mix them all together, hit or miss, and place them in a double boiler over a hot fire. Cook until the mixture begins to get very thick, stirring constantly. Then take from the stove and beat until the whole assumes a creamy texture. Spread between the layers of any cake. This recipe makes enough filling for 2 thin layers or 1 thick one, which I prefer. It can be doubled, tripled, and so on ad infinitum, depending entirely upon the number of layers in the cake. Editor's note: this is a good and unusual recipe for layer cake. To 2 eggs, well beaten, add gradually 1 cup of granulated sugar. To 1 cup of unsifted flour, add 1 teaspoonful cream of tartar and 1/2 teaspoonful of soda. Sift. Then add 1/2 cup of boiling milk with 1 teaspoonful of melted butter in it and 1 teaspoonful of vanilla. The mixture will be almost like batter and should be baked in 2 layers. 96. Looser Burbank. Turkey à la Burbank. The best ever. For an ordinary 10-pound turkey, steam 2½ hours or until the muscles of the leg can be readily pierced with a dining fork. Take steamer from the fire and carefully remove the turkey to the roasting pan. Meantime, prepare the dressing as follows. 1 loaf of bread, ordinary baker's size, or same amount of other bread, slice and toast slowly but thoroughly to a light golden color. While hot, spread butter on each slice just as a hungry boy would like it. Place in a deep dish. The cooked giblets, which, with the juice of 1 lemon and 3 whole large onions, should be ground all together in a meat grinder with teaspoon salt, a ½ teaspoon cayenne pepper teaspoon, powdered sage teaspoon, summer savory tablespoons sugar. These should be well sifted and then added to the ground vegetables and giblets, and with the meat juice saved from steaming, thoroughly mixed with the bread and all cut and mashed to about the consistency of thick mush. After filling, the turkey should be placed in an oven not too hot and slowly roasted an hour or more. Prepared as above, little or no basting will be necessary, but a few thin slices of bacon laid over the fowl will add flavor. Add no oysters, eggs, chestnuts, or other abominations. Footnotes: Mr. Burbank says so himself. If he said he could make turkey look and taste like brook trout, he probably could. 97. Raymond McKee. To cook rabbits. I do not profess to be a cook of the 1st rank, or even the 4th or 9th. But when it comes to cooking rabbits, I'll put on the kitchen apron with any cook, amateur or professional in the country. Managers, please note. And I'll abide by the decision of any judge of rabbit flesh. Out in California, where I live most of the time on my mountain yacht, you can get a lot of rabbits by shooting them, if you are good. But it's easier to buy them, and they taste the same. To cook a rabbit right, do it this way. First, get the rabbit, clean and cut into 6 pieces. Soak the pieces in salt water for several hours. I usually soak them all night and right up to the time for cooking. This whitens and improves the meat. When you are ready to cook, dry the pieces, roll them in a beaten egg and then in cracker crumbs. Put the pieces into a very hot pan with plenty of butter and fry it to a golden brown. When the color is right, put water into the pan so that the rabbit is about half covered. Cover the pan with a tight lid and steam slowly until the water is all gone, then serve. Now, if you can substitute an ordinary claret for the salt water mentioned first, and if you have more claret in which to steam the fried rabbit, you may know the perfect dish. 98. Will Deming. I can vouch for all of these. Virginia ham. Cover an 8-pound ham with cold water. Add a pint of cider vinegar, 1/2 pound of brown sugar, 6 sticks of cinnamon, and a heaping tablespoonful of cloves. Let this boil for 4 hours. Push back on the stove and let it stay all night. In the morning, skin it and put it in a hot oven for half an hour. Lemon pie. The filling, in a cup full of sugar, mix thoroughly a heaping tablespoonful and 1/2 of flour. Grate the skin of 1 lemon and add the juice. Then add the yolks of 2 eggs and a cup of water, also a pinch of salt. Stir this thoroughly all together. Put into a double boiler and let it cook until it is thick and smooth. Then pour it into the cooked pie crust. Add a teaspoonful of water to the whites of the eggs and a pinch of salt. Then beat until stiff. Cover your pie with this mixture and then sprinkle granulated sugar on top of the meringue. Don't mix the sugar and the meringue. Put under the broiler to brown. The crust, mix 2 good-sized tablespoonfuls of lard with 1½ cups of flour. Mix this with your fingers thoroughly until it feels like cornmeal, although much larger. Add ice water until the mixture holds together, then roll on a floured board. In baking the crust for a lemon pie, either puncture the crust all over with a fork or bake it on the outside of your pie tin. This will keep the crust from creeping. A dressing. For stuffed tomatoes, cold meat, or potato salad. Melt a large tablespoonful of butter. Add a saucer of vinegar to the yolks of 2 eggs. Then add a teaspoonful of dry mustard and a teaspoonful of sugar. Stir the mixture, sugar and eggs, into the vinegar, then add it to the butter which you have on the stove, melting. Keep stirring this until it gets thick, and remember that it will be much thicker when it is cold. In case you wish to use this for potato salad, don't make it very thick. 99. Charles W. Chesar. Beefsteak Charlie. Tips on steak. Why can't we have steaks like this one when we dine at home? Thousands of people have asked me that question during the 8 years that have given a real significance to the sobriquet, Beefsteak Charlie. And my honest answer to that question has always been, you can't, unless your butcher is willing to hang your beef for 4 or 5 weeks, and then you probably would not want to buy it because of its appearance. Many people ask me how to cook a steak. There is really no secret about the way it should be done, but most home cooks put the steak into a cold broiler and light the fire. That is fatal, and it is just as fatal if the fire has only been burning a few minutes. The broiler should burn full tilt for some time until it is blazing hot. Then introduce your steak and let the intense heat of the broiler seal it instantly. If there is a secret, that's it. But keep this in mind. The most careful broiling will not help if the beef is too fresh. Fresh beef simply will not do if you want the real thing. Buy the choicest cuts of sirloin or porterhouse from beef that has been hung at least 4 weeks. Broil in the way I have described, and your dinner guests will register many polite hints for another invitation. I might add that if the beef is right, you will not have to worry about a sauce. Butter, salt, and pepper will properly dress the finest steak in the world. 100. Arthur T. Vance. Salade et culinary. I don't profess to shine much as a cook. I would rather have somebody do it for me, but there are 1 or 2 things that I sometimes like to fix on my own hook. Years ago, there was some sort of a centennial exposition out in Nashville, 10. I don't remember what they had to celebrate, but at any rate, I had to take it in. I didn't know a soul, and good old Al Williams, the snake man, who died last year, gave me a letter of introduction to the Turk who ran the Hoochie Coochie show on the Midway. It is the only time I ever used a letter of introduction with efficiency and delectation. This Turk, who, incidentally, was one of the finest-looking chaps I ever saw, and a man of education, welcomed me with open arms. First of all, I had to see the show, and I was so enthusiastic about the gyrations of the sumptuous beauties that he did me the great honor of asking me to dine with him en famille. It was a great experience. All the Hoochie Coochie dancers were there, in their stage costumes, with Ma and Pa and mother-in-law, and Mother's great uncle and a rabble of other folks, large and small. We had a lot of funny things to eat, but there was one dish that really appealed to me. They called it salada, and I ate of it in such copious portions that my friend, the Turk, insisted on showing me how it was made. I have made it many times since for my own pleasure, at least, and most folk who try it once will try it again. It is a salad of ripe tomatoes, cucumbers, and onions. The main point is that you must not slice them up, but after you peel your onions, cucumbers, and tomatoes, put them whole into a chopping bowl and chop them into chunks with a chopping knife. The chunks should be about as large as the end of your thumb. After the chopping operation, put the whole business on the ice until it gets good and cold. Then drain off the juice. Add a sharp French dressing, get a big spoon and a plate and go to it. If it doesn't taste good, I'll eat it myself. Pandora French dressing. I have discovered that the secret of French dressing, to my way of thinking, is to use plenty of salt. When I make it at home, say for 5 or 6 people, I take an ordinary salt dish or saucer and cover the bottom with a lot of salt. Add black pepper and some of that chili powder that comes from a place down in Texas. This chili powder has a better flavor than paprika and has a sort of onion taste to it, but don't use too much of it. Then I cover this with a good quantity of olive oil and beat it up with a fork until it gets stiff. It is a good idea to have the olive oil cold. Then add your vinegar, good old-fashioned cider vinegar. There is a lot of it around nowadays because, while it is easy to turn sweet cider into hard, it is a good deal easier to turn hard cider into vinegar. You add the vinegar to suit your taste, and this depends a good deal on the kind of salad you are going to have. For asparagus, I like the dressing a little tart. For lettuce, not so tart, but this is a matter you can easily adjust to your own satisfaction. Welsh Rabbit acute La Morgan Robertson. I wonder how many folk who read these pages remember Morgan Robertson. Poor old Morgan is dead and gone now, but in his day he wrote some of the best sea stories ever put into English. He used to keep Bachelor Hall in a funny little studio down on 25th Street, off 6th Avenue, New York, and when his friends came to call his special delight was a Welsh rabbit. He told me how to make it, and I am trying to pass the recipe on. The beauty of Robertson's rabbit was that it never got stringy. First you put a good-sized lump of butter into a chafing dish and let it sizzle. Add some Coleman's mustard and paprika and stir it round a bit. For 6 people, I would use 2 pounds of cheese. Real old New York State full cream cheese, none of this odoriferous imported stuff. The kind of cheese they used to make down on the farm. Cut it up in chunks and put it in the pan with a little beer, near beer will do, or you could use milk. Keep adding a little more beer as the cheese commences to melt and put in a little Worcestershire sauce if you like it. When it is well melted, take a heaping tablespoonful of cornstarch, mix it with a little water, and mix it with the mess. Meanwhile, keep stirring it. Let it bubble, and when it comes to the consistency of pancake batter, meanwhile keep stirring it. You can't stir it too much. It is ready to serve. And please serve it on toasted bread. If there is anything makes me tired, it is to have Welsh rabbit served on crackers. It isn't the same thing. Don't be afraid the rabbit will get stringy, because it won't. Some folks put the cornstarch in dry instead of mixing it with water. Either way is right. Season it to suit yourself. But for the love of Mike, don't beat an egg up in it. That's another kind of fish entirely. 101. Baron de Cartier. Ambassador to the United States from Belgium. Waterzoi de Valil. Without doubt, the most popular national dish of Belgium is waterzoi de Valil, a most delectable and satisfying soup of chicken. In Brussels, the dish reaches perfection under the magic of the chef of the famous restaurant, the Filet de Sole, known to amateurs of good cooking in almost every country of Europe. I am going to tell you how they do it at the Filet de Sole. First, of course, you will secure a fine young fowl, chicken, and after it has been perfectly cleaned and dressed, you will rub it well with a piece of lemon. Now cut it up as you would for frying. Next, prepare the casserole or vessel in which the soup will be made by generously buttering the sides and bottom. Over the bottom of the vessel, place a bed of fine julienne composed of 1/3 of fine white celery. Remove all fibers or strings, 1/3 of the white part of leek, and 1/3 of white onion. To this, add a bouquet composed of a half leaf of laurel, a soupkin of thyme enclosed in a few roots of parsley, the roots having been well scraped and washed. Upon this bed, place the pieces of chicken, and over the whole pour a little more than a quart of dry white wine and veal broth, 1/3 broth and 2/3 wine. Water may be used instead of the broth, but the latter is preferable. Season with kitchen salt, freshly ground white pepper, and a pinch of clove. Bring the mixture to the boiling point, and allow it to simmer and steam under a tight cover for at least 35 minutes. Take out the bouquet and pass the roots through a metal strainer. The extract is to be added to the soup. Now add a large pinch of breadcrumbs. At this point, you will turn the soup into a large tureen and quickly add the rapidly beaten yolks of 4 eggs, 2 wine glasses of extra thick cream, and a few thimblefuls of fine butter. Complete the liaison by adding the pieces of chicken, and with a final sprinkle of chopped parsley, the waterzooi is ready for the table and for your delectation. 102. Dean Cornwell. Spaghetti my style. After thinking over all of the dishes that I like, searching for the favorite, I come right back to the old standby, spaghetti, and am forced to admit that it is my favorite. You know how to cook the spaghetti itself, I'm sure, so I will just tell you how to make the sauce that I concocted some years ago, and you'll like it. Get a big iron kettle and put into it a lot of fine beef cut into small squares, some chopped bacon, dried mushrooms, the kind you get at any little Italian store, a can of tomatoes, and some sliced onions. The dried mushrooms should be soaked for an hour or 2 before cooking. Cover the materials with plenty of water and season with salt, brown sugar, and Mexican chili powder. Cook slowly all day, the longer the better, I find. When you are simply famished and cannot wait any longer, ladle the sauce onto the steaming hot spaghetti and enjoy a real meal. The sauce is still better, in my opinion, when warmed up the second day.